LoveLore Library. Chapter 229. Tumi left with the evil emperor in the end, and the two figures dissipated above the gradually calming North Sea. Chiibu just fainted and his whole body did not suffer any harm. On the contrary, Su-Rui was suffering from the backlash of spiritual power because he forcibly activated the Heavenly Thunder Formation. At this time, his face was particularly ugly and there was a faint trace of blood on the corner of his mouth. Su-Wan grabbed Su-Rui's hand and wanted to input her spiritual power into him, but Su-Rui waved his hand at Su-Wan. "I'm fine. I'll be fine after resting for a while. Try to contact the headquarters and see if the bug has been fixed." "Yes." Su-Wan immediately closed her eyes and concentrated on contacting the headquarters. Right at this time, a voice suddenly interrupted Su-Wan's transmission of spiritual power. "Miss Su, what happened to Senior Brother Ma? Is he okay?" It was Yi Yuchi. "Why did the female lead Darren suddenly come here?" Su-Wan had no choice but to open her eyes, and Yi Yuchi's slim figure immediately appeared in front of her. Did Senior Brother Ma suffer from the backlash of spiritual power? "I have Shang-Qing Sect's healing elixir here. Miss Su, please help me feed him some." Su-Wan naturally saw Yi Yuchi's thoughts towards Su-Rui. Knowing that she would not harm Su-Rui, Su-Wan stood up and slowly came to Yi Yuchi's side. "Give me the medicine." Yi Yuchi looked at Su-Rui, who was sitting cross-legged behind the two people, and then looked at the familiar face in front of her. This was a harmful female ghost, so he couldn't be soft-hearted. She slowly reached her hand into her bosom. Her eyes flashed and she quickly took out a talisman. "Freeze!" Yi Yuchi wanted to fix Su-Wan once, but unfortunately, at the moment when her eyes changed, Su-Wan, who had been vigilant, immediately retreated and used her spiritual power to build a protective shield. Her whole person retreated safely and was not plotted against by Yi Yuchi. Seeing that she had failed, Yi Yuchi, who didn't have any spiritual power, naturally retreated quickly. At this time, Sun Randu had already jumped over. Seeing the spiritual power floating around Su-Wan's body, he narrowed his eyes slightly. "You really are a ghost, even I was deceived by you." "Ha, I'm not the only one who has deceived you. You can only blame yourself for being too stupid." Hearing Sun Randu's words, Su-Wan smiled disdainfully and her cold eyes looked at Su Jinjin not far behind him. Su Jinjin was glanced at by Su-Wan and immediately lowered his head guiltily. "Stupid." Sun Randu did not pay attention to the deeper meaning of Su-Wan's words. Seeing that Ma Yu behind her had already opened his eyes and stood up, in order to avoid complications, Sun Randu immediately summoned the ancient magic weapon he obtained in Zhou Shao Wanfu Palace, the Demon Refining Pot. It was the Demon Purification Pot. When he saw the small and quaint copper pot in Sun Randu's hand, the Black Dragon King couldn't help exclaiming in his heart, "Little Yaya, your wife is dead for sure this time." That is the ancient divine weapon, the Demon Refining Pot, which can refine everything in the world. A mere wisp of soul was extinguished the moment it entered the pot. "Sun Randu, you dare." Hearing the Black Dragon King's words, Su-Rui's expression immediately turned sinister. He stepped forward and protected Su-Wan behind him. "Wife, undo the Black Dragon King's soul seal curse." "Okay." Su-Wan immediately undid the soul seal curse with a wave of her hand, and then with a woo sound, the little black poodle fell to the ground unconscious, and the black dragon dressed in black reappeared in the world again. "Your mother, Ben Wang, was suffocated to death." The black dragon moved his hands and feet, looked at the righteous Sun Randu, and then looked at Su-Rui, who was already emitting black gas. In the end, he obediently stood behind Su-Rui. "Little Yaya, the situation is not good. You cover, I will take your wife and escape first, what do you think?" "None of you can escape today." At this time, the Shangqing sect led by Yi Zi and a group of people from Xianmen all surrounded them. Martial nephew Ma, you have been bewitched by the witch. Wake up quickly and repent. Yi Zi and looked at Su Rui with a sincere expression. It seems that they came prepared today. At this time, Su Wan, who was standing behind Su Rui, had already contacted the headquarters. After confirming the mission, it would still take some time for the transmission. She didn't know if she could survive this period of time, but... Ma you go. You and I walk different paths. In the end, we can't be together. Su Wan suddenly spoke, her tone was particularly low. Even if she couldn't drag it out until then, she would at most die in this world and her soul would be injured. She couldn't let Su Rui violate the rules of the headquarters because of this. The punishment for violating the rules was too severe. Su Wan believed that Su Rui could understand which was more important. In fact, how could Su Rui not understand? Su Wan's approach was right. She was always so rational, but he couldn't do it. How could he just watch someone hurt her in front of him? This, absolutely not. Be good, step back. Su Rui smiled. At this time, his pupils were already stained with the color of blood. Unlike the blood-red color of Tu Mi's son, Su Rui's red eyes were filled with endless killing intent and ferocity. He, who crawled out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, how could he be afraid of these ignorant warlocks in front of him? The aura of darkness began to spread endlessly in all directions. Sun Randu, who felt extreme danger, immediately narrowed his eyes and the demon refining pot in his hand was thrown out. Black Dragon, get on me. At the critical moment, Su Rui suddenly shouted. Roar! With a heaven-shaking dragon roar, the black dragon transformed into his original body, his huge figure blotting out the sky and covering the moon, instantly merging with Su Rui's body. Gotcha! White lightning streaked across the sky, and after bursts of thunder, there was an endless violent storm. The Dragon King who had been silent for thousands of years, what was his true strength? Demon refining pot. Ha! In the midst of the storm, a handsome man with long black hair gently waved his hand and the demon refining pot, which was sealed as a divine object, immediately fell into his palm. The real demon refining pot, Ben Wang has used it to drink wine, let alone this imitation. Crack! With a soft sound, the demon refining pot that everyone was looking forward to was directly crushed into pieces. Black Dragon King, did you see it? Did you see it? This is this king's true strength. Us lowly mortals can only kneel down and submit to him. Su Rui. Shut up. With a cold shout, Su Rui's long black hair quickly became short again, returning to his original appearance. Black Dragon King. Will you die if you let Ben Wang act pretentiously for a while? Little Yaya and whatnot are the most annoying today, all of you are going to die. Su Rui landed on the ground, his back facing Su Wan, and once again condensed his spirit sword. At this moment, his spirit sword was constantly entangled by the red evil spirit and the black aura of darkness, emitting an endless aura of death. Xiao Wan, I swore to myself that I would never allow anyone to hurt you, especially in front of me. If he didn't kill all the people in this world, the tyranny in Su Rui's heart couldn't be quelled at all. At this time, after the thunderstorm, the moon in the sky was blood-red. This is. Sun Randu stared blankly at Su Rui, whose evil spirit soared to the sky. At this moment, he finally understood that the monstrous blood color he saw that day, the person the great karma technique guided him to find that day, was not that female ghost, but Ma Yu in front of him. Is this the so-called fate? Su Wan stared blankly at Su Rui's back. For the first time, she took the initiative to cut off the transmission from the headquarters. Xiao Wan, be good, I'm here to take you home. That was the first time she met Su Rue, and that was the first sentence Su Rue said to her. That was the first point where they met in this life. Gloomy eyebrows, bloodthirsty eyes. Supercilious and ferocious, it was the General Su in her memory. Su Rue. She couldn't help but call out his name. I'll accompany you. I'll accompany you to watch the destruction of this world. I'll accompany you to slaughter in the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. I'll accompany you to accept the punishment from the headquarters that we were separated once, and from now on, it is necessary for us to never be separated. Fool. Su Rue gently turned around and hugged Su Wan tightly in his arms. You are Su Wan. How can my wife be so irrational? I'm waiting for you to go back. To save me. As he spoke, Su Rue lowered his head and kissed Su Wan's lips deeply. His other hand condensed spiritual power and gently patted Su Wan's back. She immediately fainted in his arms. Wife, you'd better not look at these bloody scenes, you can sleep in peace. Putting Su Wan on the ground, Su Rue gently kicked Chiibu, who had been unconscious. Hey, stop pretending, help me look after my wife, otherwise I'll chop you up too. Chapter 230. This night, Beihai was still red. The blood of the warlocks dyed the sea a blood-red color, and this was just the beginning. The Black Dragon King's soul had already come out of Su Rue's body, and now he no longer dared to call him Little Ye easily. Your mother, Benwang, has lived for tens of thousands of years and has never seen such a ferocious human being. The degree of ferocity was simply outrageous. Not only did he kill those warlocks with his own hands, but he also enslaved their souls and instructed their souls to kill the mortals of the entire world. A good world turned into a hell on earth overnight. How many people's families were destroyed? How many souls were better off dead? Not enough, far from enough. The Shangqing sect, which was once full of spiritual power, has now become a dead mountain. There were no living creatures on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain. He didn't even let a bird go. So ferocious and inhumane, the Black Dragon King had no choice but to admit defeat. Your mother, the human world is too dangerous. Benwang should go back to the Dragon Abyss and cultivate properly. Sun Randu, don't you like catching ghosts very much? In a blood-red and empty city, Su Rue smiled and snapped his fingers. Immediately, several souls flew out trembling. They were Sun Randu's relatives. Now, they were nothing more than broken souls. Of course, they didn't die too miserably. General Su never liked to torture people in detail. He usually beheaded them or dismembered them with 5 horses. He didn't like troublesome things like death by 1,000 cuts. Ma you beast. At this time, Sun Randu was still alive, but all the spiritual power in his body was sealed by Su Rue. Now he was just an unarmed ordinary person. You can curse as much as you want, curse all the dirty words you can think of. Sun Randu, do you know? I've lived for a long time, I've been to many worlds, I've seen many people, you are the first. The first person who dared to attack my woman in front of me. As he spoke, Su Rue's red eyes flashed and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face. You actually want her to die? If you want her dead, then I'll let your entire sect, your entire family, and everyone related to you in this world die. As he spoke, Su Rue suddenly took out a stack of talismans from his bosom, and then he snapped his fingers again. Immediately, a group of souls of the warlocks he had enslaved automatically formed a formation. As those talismans burned, the ghosts of the Sun Randu family began to scream miserably. Their souls were burning, and as they burned, countless souls were summoned. This was the Ma family's spirit summoning technique. By burning the souls of their loved ones, they could summon the spirits of the other heroes who had been slumbering underground. Some of those spirits had been sleeping for 100 years, but this time they were all summoned. Almost all the people who appeared in the Sun family's genealogy appeared here. One should not blame one's wife and children, but one should not blame 3 generations. At this time, Sun Randu's eyes were already blood-red. Ma you, I, Sun Randu, have followed master to learn martial arts and entered the Xianmen sect all my life. I have never killed a ghost in vain. On that day, I used divination to divine the blood-red future and calculated that the end of the human world was coming. I had to stand up for the sake of the common people in the world. Even so, I did not kill Su Jinjin that night. I never kill the innocent. Maybe I was really wrong that day, but she is a ghost and you are a human. Can you bear the sin of destroying everything in this mortal world for her? Sin. What sin can't I bear? When Su Rui heard Sun Randu's words, he just looked at him with a mocking expression. The heavens will bestow great responsibility upon this person. Sun Randu, you are the protagonist chosen by the heavens. Unfortunately, your fate is not good. You actually met Su Jinjin. Oh no, she must have told you that she is Su Wan. How can she be worthy of this name? She is just a lonely wild ghost from another world. With that, Su Rui waved his hand and Su Jinjin's ghost immediately appeared in front of the 2 people. Losing Su Wan's body, her soul body appeared to be her original appearance. She was just an ordinary woman who couldn't be any more ordinary, even older than Sun Randu. How could this be? Looking at the completely unfamiliar soul, looking at that completely unfamiliar face, Sun Randu's mind shook violently. Su Jinjin was the real Su Wan, and his wife, Su Wan, was a lonely wild ghost named Su Jinjin. She occupied Su Wan's body and deceived him in her name. Why did you lie to us? At this time, the female lead Yi Yuqi, who was left to the end by Su Rui like Sun Randu, looked at Su Jinjin with bloodshot eyes. They were all deceived by her. She said that Miss Su, who followed senior brother Ma, was a female ghost. But it turned out that she was the real lonely wild ghost. Yi Yuqi hated evil the most in her life. Although she had always liked and admired senior brother Ma from the bottom of her heart, she had never thought of breaking up others or forcing anything. It was just that when she heard that Miss Su was a female ghost, she instinctively felt that senior brother Ma was bewitched by the female ghost and she wanted to save him. Yi Yuqi never thought that everything would end like this. The color of blood is just right tonight, I'll tell you two a story. Seeing Yi Yuqi's tears of blood, Su Rui's eyes flashed and he slowly opened his mouth with a low smile. This story has a name called The Strongest Warlock. Su Rui slowly narrated everything in the original plot in a cold voice. Not only Yi Yuqi and Sun Randu, but even Su Jinjin and the Black Dragon King were stunned. It wasn't until this moment that Su Jinjin realized that she was not the only one who had mastered the plot. That's it. After telling everything, Su Rui looked up at Sun Randu and Yi Yuqi. Do you know why I left you two to the end? Because you are the protagonists of this world, and now this world is about to be destroyed. As long as you two die, its laws will immediately collapse. Kill me, senior brother Ma. Her father was dead, all her fellow disciples were dead, and Yi Yuqi, who had no hope of revenge, closed her eyes tightly. What heroine! She would rather be just an ordinary person, an ordinary warlock who could subdue demons and eliminate demons. If the price of being a protagonist was to experience many tribulations and setbacks that others did not have to experience, she would rather be just an unknown passerby. As you wish. Su Rui waved the spirit sword in his hand and immediately pierced Yi Yuqi's body. In the air, the smell of blood became stronger. Sun Randu, you are the only one left. Are you afraid of watching others wail and die one by one? Oh, by the way, you are the male protagonist, you are the strongest warlock, you have amazing perseverance, how can you be afraid? Su Rui raised his hand and took out his Yuling dagger and spun it a few times in his palm. Who the hell are you? At this time, Sun Randu had already guessed some clues from Su Rui's words and attitude. You are not Ma Yu. Yes, I am not Ma Yu. Su Rui nodded. He raised his hand and ignited all the true fire talismans he had collected from the Ma family, and a hellfire immediately appeared in front of him. All the souls were being burned. Randu, save me. Save me. Su Jinjin's soul kept struggling in the hellfire, begging bitterly. But Sun Randu only stared at Su Rui's eyes, his eyes filled with unforgettable hatred. Tell me your name, even if I turn into ashes, I will find you for revenge after 100 lifetimes. My name is Su Rui. Su Rui's dagger fell on Sun Randu's arm, leaving a bloody mark. Do you know, I'm most afraid of trouble, but I don't mind tearing you into pieces. Ha, hee hee. Hearing Su Rui's words and feeling the flesh and blood in his body being cut away piece by piece, Sun Randu's eyes became colder and colder. Remember you. I don't need it. Su Rui raised his eyebrows and bent down to look at Sun Randu. I know that Hamid Zhang taught you a secret technique that can keep your soul from being destroyed, but you seem to have forgotten what I just said. When you die, this plane will collapse. It will disappear from the thousands of planes, and no matter how powerful you are, your soul and everything about you can only be buried along with it. Unless you can also become a mission enforcer. Unfortunately, I won't give you this opportunity. Hearing Su Rui's words, Sun Randu's expression finally changed, and at this time, the monstrous hellfire was about to burn out. Su Jinjin's soul was already on the verge of death. I curse you devil. You and Su Wan will not have a good ending, all of you will die a horrible death. Die a horrible death. Die a horrible death. Su Rui's eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and a spiritual power ran through Su Jinjin's soul body, causing her to immediately scatter into ashes. He and Su Wan were never good people, and they had long been prepared to die a horrible death. It's just that it's a pity that they are still alive and well. Is this the so-called good people don't live long, but scourges live for thousands of years? When the hellfire was extinguished, there was no soul body left on the entire earth. The dagger in Su Rui's hand flew and fell on Sun Randu's body again and again. The so-called dismembering a corpse into 10,000 pieces was definitely a technical job. This world is really going to collapse, I can feel his wailing. The Black Dragon King sighed deeply and turned his head to look at Chiibu, who had been sitting cross-legged, and Su Wan, who was still unconscious beside him. Monk, Benwang is going back to the Dragon Abyss, what about you? Are you going back to your heavenly realm? Heavenly realm. Chiibu slowly opened his eyes and sighed slightly. Was it the cruel Su Rui, the self-righteous Su Jinjin, or fate that destroyed this world? When Sun Randu bled out the last drop of blood in his body, the whole world was shaking. The Black Dragon King turned into a giant dragon and soared into the sky, and Chiibu also silently chanted the name of Buddha. His whole body turned into a golden light and disappeared. Under the blood-colored sky, only Su Rui stood there alone, the dagger in his hand still dripping blood. Seal. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind him. As soon as Su Rui turned his head, he saw that Su Wan had woken up at some point. She was using all her spiritual power to seal the entire area where Sun Randu's soul had scattered. In this way, even if he can come back to life, he can only be a companion of this sunken world. Su Wan softly whispered to Su Rui. Then she slowly walked in front of him and firmly held his hand. Wait for me. I will save you. N. Chapter 231. Most of the mission enforcers of the Lost Space were elites from various planes, and there were also devils who killed people without blinking. In order to make these mission enforcers complete their task seriously, the Lost Space not only provided very rich rewards for the mission enforcers, but also the punishment policy was very strict. Once a mission enforcer violated the rules of the Lost Space, then his 5 senses would be sealed, his body would be locked in the Lost Prison, and his soul would be exiled to the Lost Space's unique prison domain. According to the severity of the mistake, the supervisor would carry out the punishment. The lightest punishment was to whip your soul every day until you were released after 81 days. And the heaviest punishment, no one knew what it was, because all the felons, their souls would forever stay in the prison domain, unable to escape. Of course, if you have a friend who violated the rules of the Lost Space and was locked in the prison domain, you can apply for help. Everyone has such an opportunity. Once your application is successful, the space headquarters will randomly issue a plotless mission to you. You won't know what the main storyline of this mission world is, or even what your identity will be, and the previous memories of the original owner, you won't know anything. You have to explore a world in confusion, and you have to complete the time-limited mission issued to you by the headquarters within the specified time. Under normal circumstances, these mission worlds are particularly unpopular, very cruel or violent worlds, and once the ignorant mission enforcers reveal any flaws or give themselves away, it will immediately cause a series of chain reactions, leading to the failure of the mission. If such a mission fails, not only will the applicant not be able to save the person he wants to save, but he will also have to pay a high number of mission points for his failure. Suwon woke up from the mission cabin and went straight to Yi Xian's office without stopping. Fortunately, Yi Xian had just finished the mission and was resting at this time. Yi Xian. Rushing into Yi Xian's room, Suwon's eyes were red. "Help me apply. Quick, I want to apply for a redemption mission." What? Yi Xian was immediately stunned when she heard Suwon's words, "Redemption mission." "Suwon, who do you want to save?" It must be known that the conditions of the redemption mission were very harsh, and the punishment after failure was very heavy. If it wasn't for the people they cared about the most, the average person would not take the initiative to apply for the redemption mission. "Don't worry about it so much, I beg you, Yi Xian, help me apply." Suwon didn't want to waste even a second. Every second she delayed, Su Rui would have to experience one more second of torture. Seeing Suwon's anxious appearance, Yi Xian's gaze flashed and she nodded. "I understand, I'll help you apply immediately." As she spoke, Yi Xian opened her communicator and connected to the headquarters internal line. At this time, in the mission center of the headquarters, a middle-aged man in a suit looked helplessly at Su. "You just woke up from that collapsed plane. Your soul is very weak now. So, I advise you not to apply for a redemption mission at this time. Su Rui is my subordinate. I brought him into the headquarters. You want me to abandon him at this time?" Su looked at the man in front of him, his tone slightly cold. "You're used to abandoning your teammates, but I can't." Hearing Su's words, the middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. As expected, he was still brooding over that matter. However, there were some things that he could not decide alone. "Furthermore, are you really doing this for your subordinates and not for others?" The middle-aged man stared closely at Su's eyes, trying to see any trace of panic on his face. However, there was nothing. Su was still the same as before. That elegant and indifferent face did not have any extra emotions. "Naturally, I'm doing this for my subordinates. He's a very important member of our department. I'm going to use him during the trial." After carefully observing Su's expression and confirming that he wasn't lying, the middle-aged man couldn't help but nod. "Okay, come with me. I'll help you open the mission." Saying this, the two turned and entered the mission dispatcher room. But when the middle-aged man entered Su Rui's name in his device, he was told that just a few minutes ago, this person's redemption mission had been applied for and the applicant had now entered the mission world. What world did she enter? Right now, Su's tone was slightly anxious. He immediately came to the headquarters after waking up. He didn't expect that he was still a step slower than Su-won. Let me check. Her luck isn't bad. She actually drew the lowest D-rank mission. But this world is also quite interesting. Someone had drawn it before but still failed in the end. What is it? Can I? Before Su finished speaking, he was interrupted by the middle-aged man. You really can't continue to enter the mission world in your current state. I advise you to dispel this unrealistic idea. The higher-ups won't let you mess around again. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Su's eyelashes trembled a few times and the corners of his mouth carried a faint smile. Okay. I understand. You should tell me which world she entered right. Getting away with it. The middle-aged man softly spat out these words. Right now, Mission World, Mission Enforcer Su-won successfully connected to the Redemption Mission World, getting away with it. The time limit for this mission is 30 days. Mission objective, survive. In her mind, the headquarters system's voice gradually faded and Su-won also slowly opened her eyes. This was a single ward, and she was lying on the hospital bed at this time. Su-won slowly sat up. She first looked down at the clothes on her body. It was a blue striped hospital gown, and beside her hospital bed, there were some fruits and supplements, and even a lot of small gifts and heart cards. Outside the window, the yellow leaves were falling. It was obvious that it was autumn now. Was she a patient now? And she should be a patient with some family property and status. Su-won looked up at her hospital bed, which had her personal information, Ward 56. Patient, Xia Yushan. Age, 27 years old. It turns out that my name is Xia Yushan. Su-won rubbed her head. It hurt a lot and her head was still wrapped in bandages. She couldn't help but find slippers to get out of bed and walk to the bathroom step by step. From the bathroom mirror, Su-won saw her face. Perhaps it was because of her illness, her skin was a little sickly pale at this time, her eyes were also empty and listless, and she looked slightly haggard. Generally speaking, Xia Yushan's facial features were considered delicate and pretty. She was not the kind of beauty that would attract people's attention at first glance, but she was still a good-looking type. Su-won looked at the bandage wrapped around her forehead in the mirror, and then she subconsciously raised her hand and touched her face. Her skin was cold. Don't know what disease this body has. This mission world is called Unfettered. From the analysis of the name, this should be a mission world with solving cases as the main theme, right? Su-won turned around while thinking. The moment she turned around, she immediately widened her eyes and exclaimed. Ah! At the door of the bathroom stood a tall figure. The man's outline was clear and his eyebrows were sharp. He stood there silently, a pair of eagle-like eyes deeply and gloomily fell on Su-won. Miss Xia, did I scare you? How come you don't make a sound when you walk? Su-won patted her chest in shock and looked suspiciously at the man in front of her. As if feeling Su-won's doubts, the man smiled and took out his ID from his pocket. City Criminal Police Force, Fan-ku. We have met once, do you still remember? No. Su-won said while holding her head in pain, my head hurts a lot, and my memory is not good these days. Officer Fan, sit down. You are a big singer, it's normal for nobles to forget things. Fan-ku smiled at Su-won and calmly walked back to the hospital bed with her. Seeing the gifts placed next to her hospital bed, he couldn't help but smile. Your fans are very concerned about your body. You have to get better soon. I also want to. Su-won smiled bitterly. Officer Fan, sit down. I don't have anything to entertain you. You eat some fruit. I just finished eating. It's not appropriate to eat fruit immediately after. Fan Ke winked at Su Wan. We criminal police officers are not as particular about diet as you artists, but we still need to understand general health knowledge. You should pay attention to your health. The safety of the citizens of the entire city depends on you. Su Wan listened to Fan Ke's words and also smiled in agreement. Seeing that Su Wan seemed to be in a good mood, Fan Ke immediately straightened his face and said seriously, "Your car accident was initially judged to be man-made. This case has now been taken over by our criminal police team 1. Car accident. It turned out that the original owner was sent to the hospital because of a car accident." Su Wan's eyes flashed and her face immediately showed an incredulous expression. "Officer Fan, you said that my car accident was not an accident, it was man-made? Who did it? Did he want to kill me? Who did it?" Fan Ke's eyes calmed down a little. "We have not identified a suspect, but," Fan Ke suddenly looked solemn and whispered in a deep voice, "Miss Xia, this is related to your life and safety. I hope you can tell me the truth. Yuan. Su Ziming, have you developed an underground relationship? What the hell is Su Ziming?" Su Wan looked embarrassed and her hands subconsciously clutched the corner of the quilt. This is my privacy. If it has nothing to do with the case, can I? This is closely related to the case. Chapter 232. You will be the third victim. Fan Ke's words made Su Wan's heart tremble. She immediately thought of her mission in this world. To live, she must live for at least 30 days. This is a world of serial murders, and will she be the next victim? Su Wan's hand unconsciously clutched the quilt on her body again. In fact, she was very happy to cooperate with Officer Fan and tell him everything she knew, but unfortunately, what did she know? She only just found out who she was. As for Su Ziming and the 2 victims, she should know them all, but now her mind was blank. She didn't know anything, and she couldn't let anyone know that she didn't know anything. "Officer Fan, I want to be alone." Su Wan finally took a deep breath and looked at Fan Ke hesitantly. "Can you leave your phone number with me? I'll call you when I think about it." "Okay." Fan Ke tore a piece of paper from the notepad he carried with him and wrote his name on it in a flamboyant manner. "Miss Xia, you can call me at any time, remember, at any time." Repeating the word, "at any time," Fan Ke slowly got up. "I'll go first, you have a good rest. And, by the way, actually, I'm also your fan." With that said, he smiled at Su Wan and then strode away. Hearing the sound of the door closing and confirming that Fan Ke had left, Su Wan immediately began to rummage in the cabinet next to the hospital bed and soon found the bag and mobile phone belonging to the original owner. Xia Yushan's mobile phone was a very expensive lady smartphone. Unlocking the page required a password or fingerprint identification. Su Wan tried it with her finger and the fingerprint that unlocked the phone was the fingerprint of her left little finger. After unlocking, a picture of a man's back appeared on the screen. "This is." Su Wan's eyes narrowed. She immediately flipped through the photo album on the mobile phone. Except for Xia Yushan's selfies and some pictures of the recording studio, she did not find any photos of other men. Then Su Wan flipped through Xia Yushan's text message records, WeChat moments, and her mobile phone address book. The first important contact person noted in the mobile phone was called Big Sister Zhang, Xia Yushan's agent, while the other important contact person noted was only a number. He doesn't even have a name. Could he be the Su Ziming that Fan Ke mentioned? Su Wan was in a daze when her phone suddenly rang. Seeing Big Sister Zhang's face flashing on the screen, Su Wan immediately pressed the answer button. "Big Sister Zhang?" "Yushan." Sister Zhang's voice was a slightly hoarse mezzo-soprano. "I'm on my way to the hospital now. What do you want to eat for lunch? I'll bring it to you." "Whatever." I don't have a good appetite. Alright, I'll buy it as I see fit. Big Sister Zhang's words and actions were swift and decisive. Seeing that she hung up the phone, Su Wan leaned back on the hospital bed, used her mobile phone to go online, and entered the words Xia Yushan in the search engine. Soon, detailed information about the female singer Xia Yushan appeared in the encyclopedia. Xia Yushan, who debuted 3 years ago, was considered an older female singer, but fortunately, her voice was particularly light and agile, and she was also delicate and pretty. As soon as she debuted, she was called Heavenly Voice and Bare-Faced Little Empress. It can be said that Xia Yushan has been smooth sailing from her debut to her popularity in the entertainment industry without any twists and turns. Was this luck? Or was there some unknown unspoken rules? Su Wan immediately entered the words Su Ziming, and countless messages about Su Ziming popped up. Of course, the most eye-catching one was the very handsome recent photo. Su Ziming, the eldest son of Baichuan Group, heir to a 10 billion yuan fortune, died in a car accident 6 months ago. Dead? Su Wan searched a few more news articles, and then slowly had some clues. Su Ziming was a rich second generation, a handsome, rich second generation who liked to invest in the entertainment industry. It was unknown how many female stars would break their heads to curry favor with such a man, but Su Ziming had emotional cleanliness. He had been in the entertainment industry for so long, but he had never been involved in a scandal with anyone. Moreover, in an interview with the media, he had publicly stated that he would never marry a female celebrity in the entertainment industry, because he was a very traditional man. Su Ziming. Su Wan closed the webpage and stared at the photo on her mobile phone screensaver. This man who only showed his back, was it him? Not long after, Big Sister Zing hurried to Su Wan's ward with a lunchbox. You're here. Su Wan looked at the middle-aged woman who was in a hurry and greeted her with a smile. And there was a bit of a traffic jam. Big Sister Zing opened the lunchbox and whispered while handing Su Wan chopsticks, "How do you feel today? Did the doctor say when you can be discharged?" "I want to be discharged today," Su Wan replied. As a result, when Big Sister Zing heard her words, she paused. Today. She frowned and looked at the bandage on Su Wan's head. The recording of the new album is not urgent, and I have already discussed with people that the other events can be delayed for a week. Yushan, I know. I know you feel bad, but you can't make life difficult for your body. It's been half a year, you should get over it. Half a year. Hearing Big Sister Zhang's words, Su Wan lowered her eyes and hid her expression in the shadows. A police officer came today. He said that my car accident was not an accident. Someone wanted to kill me. What? Hearing Su Wan's words, Big Sister Zing, who had always been calm, couldn't help but stand up in panic. What should I do? Big Sister Zing. Feeling Big Sister Zhang's panic, Su Wan couldn't help but raise her head and look at her deeply. Big Sister Zing, are you okay? No, I'm fine. Big Sister Zing put away her flustered emotions, grabbed Su Wan's hand and looked at her fixedly. Since the police came to the door, then you should stay in the hospital to recuperate. You shan't, the circle hasn't been peaceful recently. It's safer for you to stay in the hospital. The disappearance of Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao one after another had now become a hot topic. Others didn't know the relationship between the two people, but Big Sister Zing knew. Both of them, like Xia Yushan, were once Su Ziming's secret girlfriends. The waters of the entertainment industry were deep. Su Ziming looked like a gentleman on the surface, but wasn't he actually a playboy? Hearing Big Sister Zhang's words, Su Wan hesitated and nodded. Okay, I'll stay in the hospital, but, Big Sister Zing, that police officer asked me about Su Ziming. How should I answer him? Don't say anything. Big Sister Zhang's expression immediately became very solemn. You are now on the rise. Once you have something to do with him, people will definitely say that you relied on him to get to the top and that you were taken advantage of by him. Your reputation will definitely plummet because of this. This circle is like this. When it comes to men and women, they will always think of the exchange of benefits. No one will believe that you really love each other. And he has been dead for half a year. As long as you don't admit it, the police will not force you on this matter. Oh, I understand. Su Wan nodded. Seeing that she listened to her words, Big Sister Zhang nodded with relief. You should eat quickly. It won't taste good when it gets cold. Su Wan lowered her head and ate gloomily, but in her heart, she was secretly sorting out the clues she knew. Big Sister Zhang was an insider. She should know Xia Yushan's affairs the best, and she seems to be afraid of something now. Su Ziming and Xia Yushan used to be lovers, and they seemed to have a deep relationship. At least, Xia Yushan still doesn't seem to be able to forget him. As for Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao, Su Wan also checked online. The two were not very famous actresses, and they should also be inextricably linked to Su Ziming. Everything seemed to be involved with that Su Ziming, but he was already dead. Then the question now was, how did Su Ziming die? Was it really an accidental car accident? What was the relationship between the mastermind behind the scenes and Su Ziming? Why did he hunt down all the women related to Su Ziming? Su Wan's heart was in a mess, but she knew that what she needed to do most now was to keep calm and recuperate. Chapter 233. After Big Sister Zhang left, a nurse came to change Su Wan's dressing and asked her for a few autographs. When Su Wan was the only one left in the ward, she checked a lot of Xia Yushan's information and also looked at the original owner's diary and official Weibo. Now she is Xia Yushan. She can't reveal her flaws in front of anyone. Because, in the unknown world, danger is everywhere. Su Wan had experienced too many worlds. She was very vigilant, especially in a world like this. There was no one around you that you could truly trust. After memorizing her information, Su Wan felt a little headache. She lay on the hospital bed and fell asleep again. When she woke up again, it was already dark. The lights in the ward were on. Su Wan picked up the phone on the bedside, but found that the phone was out of battery. She frowned and finally found the charger in her bag and charged the phone. Because it was evening, there were not many figures in the garden downstairs of the hospital. Su Wan stood in front of the window, holding the curtains in her hand, quietly staring at the scenery outside the window. Suddenly, she felt a chill on her back. The feeling of being spied on made her hair stand on end. Who? Su Wan abruptly turned around. The ward was empty and the door was also closed. No, not in the room, outside. There was a transparent glass window on the door of the ward. Su Wan knew that someone was standing there looking at her just now. That feeling was really too real, it was definitely not her own imagination. Who was it? Murderer? Fan? Police? Or a nurse on patrol? Su Wan supported her forehead with both hands again. It hurts. Her head began to ache again. Su Wan immediately stumbled back to the bed and pressed the bell in front of the hospital bed. Soon after, the doctor on duty came over with the interns for an examination. After all the examinations were completed and the dressing was changed, it was already 7:30 p.m. At this time, the inpatient department was very quiet, especially the high-level private ward where Su Wan lived. The entire floor was extremely quiet. Dee dee. When Su Wan was about to fall asleep again, the phone she put aside to charge suddenly rang. Su Wan took the phone in a daze. The moment she saw the caller ID, her eyes widened. That kept flashing. Soo-won hesitated, but still pressed the answer button. Hello? She called out softly, but there was only noise on the other end of the phone. Even though it was far away, it was still very ear-piercing. Hello? Soo-won called again. The noise on the phone was much smaller this time. Then, there was the sound of a person's breathing, especially rapid and chaotic breathing. Who? That voice made Soo-won's blood run cold. When Soo-won was in a daze, the phone was suddenly hung up and the entire room seemed to be filled with the sound of rapid breathing just now. Soo-won could hear that it was a man's breathing. Who was it? Soo-won unplugged the phone charger and held the phone tightly in the palm of her hand. She hesitated for a moment and finally dialed the number back. Sorry, the number you have dialed does not exist. A cold, artificial voice came from the phone. Out of service, the phone in her hand slipped onto the bed and Soo-won tightly hugged her body. Humph! The lights in the ward began to flicker, and then Soo-won saw that the lights in the corridor outside the ward were also flickering, as if the whole world would fall into darkness in the next second. No. Soo-won looked for it on her bedside table in a panic. When she found the piece of paper left by Fan Kub, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She hurriedly picked up the phone and immediately dialed the number on it. Hello, this is Fan Kub. The phone was quickly connected, and Fan Kub's calm and powerful voice came from it. Officer Fan, this is Xia Yushan. I'm so scared. Can you come to the hospital? I'll be right there, don't hang up. As if feeling the panic in Soo-won's mood, Fan Kub couldn't help but soften his voice. I'm not far from your hospital now. And why don't you sing me a song? I'm really your fan and I like your song Summer in a Dream very much. Summer in a Dream was Xia Yushan's famous song, and the lyrics of this song were also written by her. It had to be said that Xia Yushan was really a talented woman in music. Unfortunately, Soo-won didn't know anything about music. Officer Fan, I'm scared. I can't sing. Soo-won's voice kept trembling. I feel like someone is staring at me. It's so scary. I'm really scared. At the end, there was already a hint of sobbing in her voice. Hearing her voice, there was a pause on the other end of the phone. After a few seconds, suddenly a song floated out of the phone. No matter how far you go, I will wait for you in the same place. Waiting for you in every summer. This was Fan Kub's voice. Soo-won didn't expect him to really be a fan of Xia Yushan. This song was sung with a low and sexy male bass voice, and it had a special affection. Under the sycamore tree, you smiled and said forever. It turned out that it was the summer in my dream. As the last note of the song fell, the lights in the ward went out, and the door happened to be pushed open at this moment. In the darkness, Fan Kub's figure looked extremely tall. Don't be afraid, the hospital's power supply system is just out of order. It will be fine soon. As soon as he entered the door, he immediately comforted Soo-won in a low voice. Fan Kub couldn't see Soo-won's expression in the darkness. He walked to the hospital bed step by step by the light of his mobile phone and sat down gently by the bed. Officer Fan, am I going to die? Soo-won suddenly spoke, her sweet voice carrying a trace of despairing coldness. No, you won't. Fan Kub shook his head and raised his hand to grab Soo-won's hands in the dim room. I will protect you. And this is the duty of us police officers. I want to be discharged from the hospital. I don't think this hospital is safe. Soo-won did not pull out her hand that was held by Fan Kub. At this time, she should need someone to give her a sense of security, shouldn't she? My head hurts, and I think there's something wrong with the medicine I used. Soo-won continued to speak, her tone full of doubt and denial about everything. Medicine. Hearing Su Wan's words, Fan Ku's tone sank. I will help you check this. Is there anything else special? Someone is monitoring me. I suspect that he has entered my room and touched my mobile phone while I was asleep. Su Wan pulled her hand out of Fan Ku's hand and handed her mobile phone to him. I slept in the afternoon and slept very soundly. When I woke up, I found that my mobile phone was out of battery, but it still had 3 bars of battery before I went to bed. The mobile phone must have been touched by someone, or even, maybe it was tampered with, such as installing a tapping device or a surveillance camera or something. Su Wan won't tell him everything. She can't be too stupid in front of Fan Ku, but she also can't make herself look too smart. Chapter 234. Not long after, the lights in the ward turned on again, and Su Wan saw Fan Ku's messy clothes by the bed. It was obvious that when she called him, he had already fallen asleep. Officer Fan, you. Hee hee. Fan Ku tidied up his shirt. I've let Miss Xiao laugh at me. I've been busy recently and haven't had a good rest. I'm on leave today, so I went to bed earlier. Then I've disturbed you, I'm so sorry. When Su Wan heard Fan Ku's words, she immediately showed an apologetic look at him. There's nothing to disturb, it's to serve the people, not to mention to serve a beauty. Fan Ku tidied up his clothes and immediately stood up, his expression returning to the seriousness from the beginning. It's too late tonight. If you want to leave the hospital, call someone to pick you up tomorrow. Stay here with you tonight. You can sleep. But you. It's okay, isn't there a sofa? I can fall asleep as long as I have a place. Fan Ku smiled heartily at Su Wan. You can rest assured, it's okay with me here. Seeing that Fan Ku had made up his mind, Su Wan nodded. Thank you, Officer Fan. Just call me Fan Ku. Fan Ku walked to the sofa on the side, found a comfortable position and lay down. Okay, go to sleep. With Fan Ku around, Su Wan finally seemed to be at ease. After a while, her even breathing sounded in the ward. Fan Ku on the sofa kept a posture. When Su Wan fell asleep, he slowly got up and sat on the sofa, staring at Su Wan on the hospital bed. Xia Yushan. Miss Xia. He called out softly twice. Seeing that Su Wan was really asleep, Fan Ku slowly got up, came to the hospital bed and pulled the quilt for her, and then his eyes fell on her mobile phone. She said that the mobile phone was tampered with. Fan Ku's expression was solemn. He pressed on the mobile phone and the password lock immediately popped up. Need a password? Fan Ku hesitated, entered a string of numbers, and the mobile phone was immediately unlocked, revealing the screensaver photo with only a back view. Fan Ku looked at the photo, and his eyes darkened. His fingertips quickly checked Su Wan's mobile phone for a long time, and he didn't seem to find anything unusual. In the end, Fan Ku gently put the mobile phone back in place and turned to leave the ward. When the door was softly closed, Su Wan's eyelashes trembled, but she did not open her eyes. Nothing happened that night. The next morning, when Su Wan woke up, Fan Ku was still sleeping soundly on the sofa. He went out last night and came back about half an hour later. From the beginning to the end, Su Wan closed her eyes and pretended to sleep, but her suspicion of Fan Ku increased by 1 point in her heart. In the morning, another doctor came to make a ward round. Su Wan discovered that her attending doctor had actually changed. However, even so, she didn't want to stay in this hospital anymore. After all, the information she could obtain in the hospital was too little and too one-sided. After communicating with the doctor, Su Wan called Big Sister Xing again. Seeing that her attitude was very firm, Big Sister Xing on the phone had to go along with Su Wan and make an appointment to pick her up from the hospital at noon. Seeing that Su Wan was ready to leave the hospital, Fan Ku, who didn't sleep much all night, finally yawned and stood up. Miss Xia, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. And, thank you for last night, Fan Ku. Su Wan sat on the hospital bed and smiled at Fan Ku. When my injury is better, I'll treat you to a meal. Okay, contact me by phone. Fan Ku waved his hand at Su Wan, and then strode away. After he left, Su Wan couldn't help but come to the window and quietly look downstairs. Not long after, Fan Ku's figure appeared downstairs. He walked to a red off-road vehicle while making a phone call. Su Wan had been quietly watching until the red Land Rover disappeared from her line of sight, then she slowly lowered her eyes. Xia Yushan lived in a very high-end enclosed garden community. At noon, Big Sister Xing took the driver and took Su Wan home directly from the back door of the hospital. Su Wan was unfamiliar with this home. On the contrary, Big Sister Xing looked more like the owner of this house. She helped Su Wan and busied herself until she saw Su Wan take her medicine and fall asleep in bed, and then Big Sister Xing left with peace of mind. Shortly after she left, Su Wan woke up. Xia Yushan's bedroom was very large, and there were many dolls that little girls liked in the room. Su Wan's gaze swept over those dolls, and finally her gaze fell on the desk not far away. There were some books scattered on the desk, among which a thick diary aroused Su Wan's interest. Perhaps she was very reassured about her home. Xia Yushan's diary was not locked. This was a thick handmade diary with a cowhide cover. The book was not thick, but it was full of writing. Su Wan looked at the date. The first page of the diary was New Year's Day, starting on January 1st, and the last page of the diary was April 12th. Exactly more than 6 months ago. Su Wan roughly flipped through the diary. Xia Yushan seemed to be a very simple person. Every day in the diary, she only recorded some of her daily life, what new songs came out, where she went, and what inspiration she had. But since the end of February, the style of her diary has changed. She seems to be in love. He likes to listen to me sing very much. He looks very good when he smiles. He said he would be with me forever. This heat began to appear frequently in Xia Yushan's diary until the page of April 12th. This was the last page of the diary. The handwriting on it seemed to have been soaked with water, and the blue font was blurred, but it was still possible to see what the diary owner wrote. The newspaper said that he had an accident. I don't believe it. He must be joking with me again. I went to the hospital and saw him. He was sleeping very peacefully. His family was around him. There were a lot of reporters gathered there. I didn't dare to approach and could only watch silently. He was just asleep, wasn't he? April 12th was the day Su Ziming died in a car accident. It seemed that this heat was indeed Su Ziming. Su Wan put down the diary and rummaged through the desk again. Finally, she found a photo album in a drawer of the desk. The photo album was full of photos of Xia Yushan and Su Ziming. Su Ziming's smile in the photo was indeed particularly bright and charming. Although she had not seen it with her own eyes, looking at the smile in the eyes of the two people in the photo, Su Wan could feel that the two people were very happy at that time. On the last page of the photo album, there was a picture of a diamond ring, and behind the picture was a line of small words, holding your hand, growing old with your son. This was Xia Yushan's handwriting, and the date signed below was April 10th. Could it be that they were already planning to get married before Su Ziming's accident? If Su Ziming's death was not an accident, but a murder, who was it that wanted to stop them from being together? Half a year later, why did that person suddenly wield the butcher's knife against Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao? Was it Su Ziming's admirer? Or Xia Yushan's pathological fan? Obviously, the possibility of the former was very high. Su Wan had checked Su Ziming's information and knew that he was once known as the nation's husband. He was rich, good-looking, young and promising. It was also very normal for a high-profile and handsome man like him to be infatuated with some crazy and pathological women. Of course, if the real culprit behind the scenes was a woman, Soo-won still felt that it would be easier to deal with. What if it was a man? Soo-won couldn't help but feel a chill, but in the entertainment industry, it was also very common for men and women to eat both. Chapter 235. On the first night after returning home, Soo-won carefully checked the whole house. After making sure that every corner was safe and familiarizing herself with everything in the house, Soo-won took a shower with peace of mind. The warm water flowed over her pale skin. Soo-won looked at the dark golden tattoo on her arm and was in a daze. This was the bracelet that Old Ghost gave her, which turned out to be a tattoo in this world. Why that the thing that Old Ghost gave her could follow her back to the lost spacetime, and even followed her into another world. Old Ghost, who is he? What kind of secret is hidden in this bracelet? Soo-won closed her eyes and her whole body sank to the bottom of the water. She couldn't think about it, she didn't have time to let her imagination run wild. She just wanted to save Soo-rue. Soo-rue, wait for me. You must wait for me, I can do it, I won't let you down. Soo-won didn't sleep well all night. Her dreams came one after another. In that chaotic dream, she saw Xia Yushan and Su Ziming, and also saw many people she was not familiar with. Everyone surrounded her and congratulated her. Su Ziming took out a diamond ring from a large bouquet of roses and put it on her finger with a smile. He said, "Yushan, marry me, you are my whole summer." Soo-won suddenly woke up from her dream. For some reason, she had a terrible headache in her heart. Summer. Summer in the Dream was Xia Yushan's famous song. Why did she have such a dream? Dong dong dong. A knock on the door interrupted Soo-won's thoughts. Soo-won looked at the time. It was already 9:15 in the morning. At this time, could it be Big Sister Zhang? No, Big Sister Zhang has the key to this apartment. Soo-won got out of bed, hurriedly changed her clothes and washed her face. The knocking on the door continued. It was rhythmic and forceful. Soo-won stood at the door and couldn't help but look out through the peephole. What she saw at a glance was a shining police badge. Yes, police. Soo-won tidied up her hair and then gently opened the door. Is it Miss Xia? The man in the lead smiled at Soo-won, then took out his ID and introduced himself, City Criminal Police Team 1 Captain, Fan Ku. Fan Ku. Soo-won widened her eyes and looked at the slightly dark-skinned unfamiliar man in front of her. Under astonishment, she suddenly snatched his ID. His photo was clearly stuck on it, as well as the police number. The word Fan Ku was printed neatly on it. Captain Fan, this, the policewoman looked at Soo-won inexplicably and then looked at her captain in confusion. Ahem. Fan Ku scratched his head awkwardly. This, don't I look like a policeman? Miss Xia, you. You are Fan Ku, are you really Fan Ku? Then, who is Fan Ku? No, I mean someone told me he was Fan Ku. While talking, Soo-won hurriedly ran back to her bedroom and took out her mobile phone. She found Officer Fan's phone number in the phone book and directly called. Sorry, the number you dialed is unavailable. Soo-won tightly grasped her phone, the expression on her face was full of confusion. Someone pretended to be me and met you. What did he say to you? Miss Xia, Miss Xia. Fan Ku walked into Soo-won's bedroom and saw that she was still in a daze. He couldn't help but raise his hand and gently touch her arm. Oh. Soo-won came back to her senses and stared at Fan Ku. Are you really a policeman? I'm a fake. Fan Ku even lifted his coat, revealing the handcuffs and police gun around his waist. That man went to the hospital to find me. He said his name was Fan Ku. He really looked like a policeman. Yes, the impression that Fan Ku gave Su Wan was really like a criminal police officer. He had a very special smell that only a criminal police officer would have, so Su Wan never suspected that Fan Ku would be a fake. Like a policeman. Hearing Su Wan's words, Fan Ku frowned. We will go to the hospital to verify this matter. Miss Xia, we are here this time hoping that you can cooperate with us to investigate a case. Is it the case of Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao? Su Wan heard Fan Ku's question and couldn't help but ask back. You know. The policewoman who followed Fan Ku in heard Su Wan's words and looked at her in surprise, her eyes full of suspicion. It was Fan Ku, no, it was the fake Fan Ku who told me. He said that Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao are dead, and I will be the third victim. Ah. Hearing Su Wan's answer, the policewoman immediately opened her mouth. Captain Fan, is that person the murderer? It must be the murderer. The murderer has appeared. Lu Yu, calm down. Fan Ku patted Lu Yu's shoulder with a black line on his face, and then smiled at Su Wan reassuringly. She is a newly graduated trainee police officer. She has watched too many police movies and is talking nonsense. Miss Xia, don't mind her. It doesn't matter, I'm already prepared. Su Wan replied indifferently, then turned her head and smiled at Fan Ku. Both of you, please sit in the living room. What do you want to drink? I'll go to the kitchen to get it. There's no need to be so troublesome. We came here mainly to learn something about Su Ziming from Miss Xia. Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao were killed one after another. Both victims' faces were scratched and their bodies were stabbed many times by the murderer. The two people's deaths were similar, and it was initially determined that the same murderer did it. Why did the murderer kill the two of them? Apart from being female artists, Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao's life circles were completely different. If you have to find one thing in common between the two, then it is that they have both been praised by Su Ziming. Fan Ku also found some items related to Su Ziming in the homes of the two victims. According to the transcripts of the two victims' agents and assistants, it can be confirmed that both of them had been in love with Su Ziming, and it was the kind of secret love that could not be made public. Maybe this is a clue. Fan Ku immediately contacted the people of the Su family. The people of the Su family refused to talk about Su Ziming's private affairs. In the end, Fan Ku had to find Su Ziming's former personal assistant, Yang Yi. From Yang Yi, Fan Ku got some unknown private secrets. Su Ziming, who originally claimed that he would not have any relationship with the female stars in the entertainment industry, not only dated 3 female stars, but he even planned to marry the singer Xia Yushan. Of course, this marriage was strongly opposed by his parents. After learning this news, Fan Ku did not immediately come to Xia Yushan to confirm it, because they handled the case based on evidence. Now, he only suspected that this case might be related to Su Ziming's death 6 months ago, but there was no substantial evidence to support Fan Ku's inference. In the past few days, Fan Ku has been constantly sending people to collect news related to the two victims, and at the same time, he was also looking through the file of Su Ziming's accident 6 months ago. Su Ziming's death was initially judged as a traffic accident. His car was carefully inspected and found that no one had tampered with it, so the possibility of homicide was ruled out. Even so, Fan Ku still felt that Su Ziming's death was inextricably linked to the two murders today. There has been no breakthrough in the murder case in his hands, and it has become a cold case that has fallen into a dead end. Now he can only look for that breakthrough in Xia Yushan, if the murderer's next target is her. In the living room, the atmosphere was a bit depressing. Lu Yu had been looking around Su Wan's house, while Fan Ku sat on the sofa and looked at Su Wan with a smile. Miss Xia, don't be too nervous. We are just asking casually. Don't take Lu Yu's words to heart. We are still investigating the deaths of Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao. The current evidence cannot confirm whether their deaths are related to Su Ziming. However, I still want to take the liberty to ask you about you and Su Ziming. Do you mind? I don't mind. Ziming isn't here anymore. What else do I have to mind? Su Wan lowered her eyes and her tone was a little sad. Actually, I haven't been with him for a long time. Ziming doesn't tell me much about his company and family. He likes to listen to me sing. At that time, he specially rented a private recording studio. We often went there to date. He played the piano and I sang. That was the best thing. Well, Su Wan admitted that this was all written in Xia Yushan's diary. She was just a storyteller now. The story of a gifted scholar and a beautiful woman was romantic, but unfortunately, as always, it had a tragic ending. Hearing Su Wan's words, Fan Ke also nodded slightly. He also learned about Su Ziming and Xia Yushan from Yang Yi. At this time, her words were basically the same as what Yang Yi told him. Fan Ke also didn't expect that the dignified eldest young master of Baichuan was actually a literary and artistic young man. Miss Xia, has Su Ziming ever told you about his emotional experience? For example, his relationship with Lin Lulu and the others, or, when you were with him, was there anyone who often looked for him and harassed him? No. Su Wan slowly shook her head. I'm very busy this year. The time I spend with him is very short, and Ziming doesn't want others to know about us. Oh. Hearing Su Wan's words, Fan Ke habitually raised his hand and touched his chin. Since he had decided to spend a lifetime with his lover, why would he still be afraid of others knowing about them? Who was the person he was afraid of and avoiding? Su Ziming, what secret is he hiding? Chapter 236. When Fan Ke and Lu Yu left, they also left their contact information for Su Wan as usual. At this time, Su Wan looked at the phone numbers of the two police officers' Fan in her mobile phone and she couldn't help narrowing her eyes. Fan Ke, who the hell are you? Achoo! At this time, just opposite Su Wan's apartment, a man who had been holding a high-powered telescope suddenly sneezed. Who is missing me again? The man rubbed his nose. At this time, the phone he placed on the coffee table suddenly rang. The man looked at the caller ID and hesitated to press the answer button. As soon as the phone was connected, an exasperated voice came from inside. Xiao Jin, you use my name to go out and show off again. Do you believe that I will arrest you for impersonating a police officer? Ouch! Xiao Jin sat on the sofa and lazily turned on the hands-free on the phone. Fan Ke, don't be so angry. I just saw you with a black face. Is your nightlife uncoordinated these days? Do you have an endocrine disorder? Wait. What did you just say? Did you see me? Where are you? Opposite Xia Yushan's house. Xiao Jin, are you crazy? You are not a police officer now. Don't mess around. Fan Ke's tone on the phone was particularly anxious. Xiao Jin leaned back on the sofa. Fan Ke, you don't have to worry about my affairs. I won't interfere in your investigation. You should be able to understand, a little fan, the kind of feelings that want to protect his goddess. Feelings my ass. Fan Ke on the other end of the phone involuntarily cursed. Even the old ant sweeping the street can sing a few lines of that song Summer in a Dream. If you have the ability, sing another song of Xia Yushan, just one will do. Xiao Jin, the so-called brother who is willing to sacrifice himself is referring to you, huh? Ouch, my stomach hurts, I'm going to shit, I'm hanging up. Hello. Without giving Fan Ke any other chance, Xiao Jin directly hung up the phone. Standing up from the sofa, Xiao Jin glanced at his other phone that had been turned off. His expression was a little complicated and expectant. Bending down to pick up the black mobile phone, Xiao Jin turned it on while walking to the window. From the telescope, he could clearly see the living room of Xia Yushan's house. Sigh, what a pity, why can't I see the bedroom? Xiao Jin held his breath and watched Xia Yushan sitting on the sofa in a daze. She was holding the mobile phone in her hand and her eyes were empty. What was she thinking? Su Ziming. After being in a daze for a while, Xia Yushan stood up and turned on the home theater at home. It could be seen from the screen that she was listening to her album. Well, it turned out that song queens were also very narcissistic. Xiao Jin's cold face couldn't help but reveal a smile. Actually, I am really a fan of Xia Yushan. Why doesn't Fan could believe it? The night sky of the city was beautiful and dangerous. Su Wan stayed at home for a day. When she opened the fridge at night, she discovered a very serious problem. There was no rations at home. It seems that Xia Yushan rarely cooks at home. There are not many things in the refrigerator, most of which are milk and drinks. Pitiful Su Wan had been thinking about things at noon and only ate some fruits. Now, her internal organs were in revolution. Call Sister Zhang. This won't do. What if Sister Zhang became suspicious? But if she went out by herself, what if something happened? Su Wan struggled for a long time. Finally, she found a lady's electric baton and pepper spray in Xia Yushan's bedroom, then she put on a hoodie and a mask and hurried downstairs. The street lights in the community were very bright. At this time, there were still some owners who had just returned, driving past Su Wan. The security guards of the community were also patrolling dutifully. Seeing that there were cameras at every corner, Su Wan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Well, don't blame her for being timid, she really cherished her life too much. Opposite the community was a shopping mall. At this time, the mall was still open. Su Wan went directly to the fast food restaurant on the first floor of the mall to eat something, and then went down to the underground supermarket to buy a month's rations. That's right, Su Wan was so ruthless. Because it was already past 8 o'clock, there were not many people in the supermarket. Su Wan picked some instant noodles and frozen dumplings and wontons. Finally, she went to the beef and mutton counter to pick for a long time and picked out a few good steaks. When Su Wan finished picking the steaks and turned around, something strange happened. Your mother. Who touched this old lady's instant noodles? All the instant noodles in the shopping cart had disappeared without a trace. Who? Su Wan vigilantly looked around. Unfortunately, she couldn't see any suspicious people, but she knew that person was nearby. Su Wan put the steaks away and bought some snacks and women's supplies. This time, she deliberately walked a bit further and then quietly went around to another row of shelves, quietly watching her shopping cart. Unfortunately, she looked for a long time and no one approached there. Instead, the security guards in the supermarket saw Su Wan's mysterious and sneaky appearance and couldn't help but look at her a few more times. Su Wan. Coming out of the supermarket, Su Wan's mood was very heavy. The feeling of being watched by people all the time was not very good. She carried big bags of things and absent-mindedly crossed the road. At this time, a gray sports car suddenly rushed over. Be careful. A deep male voice suddenly rang in Su Wan's ears. When she came back to her senses, she had already been dragged back to the roadside. The things in the shopping bag were scattered all over the ground. Su Wan turned her head to see who saved her. As a result, the moment she turned her head, she saw a familiar figure flash past the corner of the street. That was Su Wan's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She subconsciously wanted to chase after that person, but the person next to her pulled her arm. Xia Yushan, what are you doing? Su Wan came back to her senses and looked at the person in front of her. It was Fan Ku. Fan Ku. No, you are not Fan Ku. Who the hell are you and why are you pretending to be a police officer to approach me? Looking at the man close at hand, Su Wan vigilantly took 2 steps back. Don't be nervous, I'm not a bad person. The man showed a smile that he thought was very charming. My name is Xiao Jin, I used to be a police officer, now I am a private detective. Detective Xiao Jin. Detective was really a good profession, and once the so-called detective appeared in a difficult case, then the police officers would generally be reduced to supporting roles. Su Wan observed Xiao Jin calmly. Yes, this man had a certain characteristic, and if this characteristic had to be summed up in one word, it would be protagonist, light, ring. Xiao Jin, the male protagonist of this world. Su Wan felt that she was slowly approaching the core of the plot of this world. Detective. She looked at Xiao Jin suspiciously. You have been following me. Are you the one who took my instant noodles? Xiao Jin, that I hate instant noodles the most. No, I'm not monitoring you, I'm just protecting you. Also, I don't eat instant noodles, and I advise you to eat less. Xiao Jin replied in a serious manner. You're protecting me. But I don't know you. Su Wan questioned, and then hurriedly squatted down and began to pick up the things scattered on the ground. I said, we've met before. Xiao Jin's eyes suddenly stared at Su Wan's eyes. Half a year ago, at Su Ziming's funeral. Half a year ago, funeral. Su Wan's movement stiffened, and her face was a little ugly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mention your sadness. Xiao Jin also squatted down to help Su Wan pick up. It was Mr. Su who hired me. He asked me to investigate the truth of Su Ziming's death. I have found nothing in the past 6 months, until... Xiao Jin did not continue, but his words set off a huge wave in Su Wan's heart. Chapter 237. I'm just a detective. At present, I haven't found any evidence to prove that Su Ziming was murdered. Facing the agitated Su Wan, Xiao Jin's tone was very calm. Of course, I don't agree with the police that it was an accident. What does this mean? Su Wan packed up her things and held them in her hand. You think Ziming was murdered, but you haven't been able to find evidence, right? Xiao Jin shrugged. To be precise, old Mr. Su has always believed that his son was murdered, because, well, some private matters of the employer are inconvenient to disclose. In short, although I have found nothing in the past 6 months, I will receive the Su family's commission on time. Well, this money is enough to support my detective agency and let me say goodbye to the annoying instant noodles. Su Wan, hee hee. Seeing Su Wan looking at him suspiciously, Xiao Jin took the initiative to help her carry the things in her hand. You seem to be questioning my ability to solve cases. What I want to tell you is that Fan Ku was defeated by me. I was a famous ruthless detective when I was in the police force. Really? Then can I ask why you were fired? When Su Wan heard Xiao Jin's words, she couldn't help but ask. Ah. Xiao Jin's face was a little embarrassed. How do you know I was fired? A lot of detectives in detective stories are fired. Su Wan shrugged innocently. Your mother, sure enough, art comes from life. Xiao Jin smiled bitterly. Actually, it's nothing, I just illegally detained the suspect, and trespassed into a private house, and incidentally. Okay, stop. Su Wan looked at Xiao Jin with a face of distrust. So you were the one who monitored me at the entrance of the hospital that day? You also destroyed the circuit of the hospital? For a detective with no bottom line, these are definitely appetizers, aren't they? No, how could it be? I didn't do it. Xiao Jin looked at Su Wan with a serious face. That resolute and calm face looked particularly reliable. Unfortunately, Su-won, who had already seen through the actual characteristics of a certain detective, would never believe his nonsense. Forget it, it doesn't matter if it was you or not. I'm home, you don't have to send me off. Walking downstairs of the apartment, Su-won snatched her shopping bag from Xiao Jin's hand. That. Aren't you going to invite me upstairs? Xiao Jin looked at Su-won with a smile. I refuse. Leaving these 3 words, Su-won turned around and left without hesitation. Sigh. On an autumn night, the cool breeze was blowing. Xiao Jin watched Su-won's figure disappear, and then looked up at the light in her window. He smiled and shook his head. When he turned to leave, he first used his black mobile phone to send a message to Su-won, then took out his work mobile phone and dialed Fan Ke's number directly. I'm very busy right now. If you have something to say, say it. Fan Ke's voice was particularly impatient. Help me check this car. Xiao Jin told Fan Ke the license plate number, and finally added slowly, just now, Xia Yushan almost had a car accident again. What? What was going on? Where is it? Beep. Beep. Without waiting for Fan Ke to finish asking, Xiao Jin hung up the phone with a bad heart. Your mother, who told you not to talk to me properly, I can't cure you. Criminal Police Unit Office, fuck. Xiao Jin, you have guts. Fan Ke smashed his mobile phone fiercely, and then stood up in a hurry. Little Zhang, come here, contact the traffic team immediately and help me get the information of this car. I want all the information about the owner, hurry up. Yes. Little Zhang on the side took the number from Fan Ke's hand and immediately began to contact the traffic team. Fan Jingtian City, apartment on the 12th floor. Su-won returned home and cleaned up the refrigerator. When she returned to the living room, she subconsciously stood in front of the glass window in the living room and looked at it, and then closed the curtains without hesitation. Who told you to peep? Who told you to peep? That damn peeping maniac Xiao Jin. Isn't it a professional requirement? After closing the curtains and feeling that she would no longer be monitored, Su-won breathed a sigh of relief. She immediately turned back to the bedroom and took out the photo album she had seen during the day. She quickly flipped through the photo album until she flipped to a certain photo. Su-won's movements finally stopped. She subconsciously took out her mobile phone and placed it next to the photo. This was a selfie taken at the beach. Xia Yushan was smiling brilliantly at the camera, while Su Ziming's back was facing her, staring at the sea in front of him. Back view. This was Su Ziming's back view, and it was the only photo of his back view in the entire photo album. Su-won looked at the photo for a long time, and then her eyes fell on her mobile phone again. The screensaver of the mobile phone was also a man's back view, but not Su Ziming. That back view, Su-won closed her eyes and thought of the flash of figures she had just seen on the street. That back view slowly overlapped with the back view on her mobile phone screen, and finally matched perfectly. If the person who monitored her in the hospital that day was Xiao Jin, then who was the person who took away her instant noodles in the supermarket today? What was the relationship between him and Xia Yushan? Was he involved in Su Ziming's death? Su-won stared fixedly at the mobile phone. At this time, the phone number's call rang for the second time. Is it him? Su-won immediately answered the phone quickly. Like last time, there was only the sound of heavy breathing on the phone, breathing in and out, rapid and nervous. Is it you? Su-won made her voice sound particularly heavy. The breathing on the other end of the phone stopped. Do, the phone was ruthlessly hung up again. It's him. This time, Su-won was very sure that the man on the other end of the phone should be the owner of the back view she caught a glimpse of tonight, that is, the man on Xia Yushan's mobile phone screensaver. This world is really getting more and more interesting. Su Wan's hand gently stroked Xia Yushan's face in the photo. It turns out that you are also a person with a secret. In this world, everyone has an unbearable past, and everyone has secrets that they don't want others to know. On the third night of coming to this world, Su Wan surprisingly slept peacefully. When Su Wan woke up at dawn, she felt very comfortable all over. She raised her hand in a daze to get her mobile phone, but ended up touching a glass of water. Su Wan's sleepiness disappeared in an instant. She got up abruptly and stared fixedly at the glass of water placed at the head of the bed. The glass was filled with boiled water. Last night, she clearly put her mobile phone here before going to bed. How could? Su Wan retracted her hand and didn't dare to touch the glass again. Where's the mobile phone? She searched in her bedroom. Her cell phone was missing. How did it go missing? Could it have grown legs and run away? Su Wan ran to the living room in her pajamas, pulled open the thick curtains, and then she stood in front of the window and waved desperately. Not long after, there was finally a knock on the door. Xia Yushan, open the door, I'm Xiao Jin. Thank God, the male lead always came faster than the police. He really deserved 32 likes for this. Su Wan ran barefoot to the door and opened it anxiously. Xiao Jin, hurry, go to my bedroom, that glass of water, that glass of water. Xiao Jin saw that Su Wan was already out of her wits. He patted her on the shoulder comfortingly and then walked quickly into Su Wan's bedroom. Seeing the glass of boiled water on the bedside table, Xiao Jin immediately took out a pair of white gloves from his pocket. After putting on the gloves, he slowly walked to the bed, picked up the glass, and sniffed it under his nose. There was no special smell. Chapter 238. The cup of water at Su Wan's bedside was finally taken by Xiao Jin to be tested. It was confirmed that there was poison inside. It was thallium. Thallium poison was colorless, odorless, and easily dissolved in water. Thallium ions could invade the human nervous system and transmit the only feeling to the human body, which was pain. Extreme pain, pain that the human body simply could not bear. The bite poison might not necessarily kill you, but it would definitely make you wish you were dead. When your nerves, your brain was completely destroyed, even if you fell into an endless coma, you would still be able to feel it. That kind of pain was bone deep. Just how much hatred did he have for him to be so vicious? Xiao Jin had also encountered similar poisoning cases. To be honest, such cases were mostly related to emotional disputes. Jealousy is one of the original sins of mankind. Who else has a key to your apartment? Sitting on the sofa and looking at Su Wan, whose lips were pale, Xiao Jin's tone was exceptionally low. At this moment, he was more like an experienced criminal policeman. Sister Zhang. Su Wan trembled and spat out a name, but Sister Zhang won't harm me, I'm sure. Ha! Xiao Jin just smiled. Even if she won't hurt you, she can't stop others from hurting you, can she? Your key and her key are not safe. Your room is not safe either. Then what should I do? Moving. Su Wan shouted at Xiao Jin with a hoarse voice, he can find me wherever I go. Xiao Jin, I have nowhere to run. Am I going to die like Lin Lulu and the others? Am I right? How did they die? Did he die a particularly miserable death? No, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. As a mortal, how could she maintain her composure in the face of death? She couldn't calm down. Seeing that Su Wan's mental state was on the verge of collapse, Xiao Jin immediately stood up, strode to Su Wan, and hugged her tightly with open arms. Xia Yushan, calm down, I'm here, you will be fine, I will protect you. Xiao Jin's tone was particularly solemn. I'm here. These three simple words seemed to contain boundless power. making people feel incomparably safe. Xiao Jin, save me, save me. Su Wan's hands tightly grabbed Xiao Jin's sleeves. Today. Today you stay and accompany me, you accompany me. Yes, I'll stay. I'll stay with you. I'll watch over you. You're safe. Xiao Jin pacified Su Wan's emotions, a pair of big hands gently caressing her long hair, but that pair of eagle-like eyes, at this moment, flashed with a strange and complicated expression. For the whole day, Su Wan pulled the curtains and was excessively nervous. Seeing her restless appearance, Xiao Jin could only try his best to tell her jokes and let her not think about other things as much as possible. Let's listen to your song. I like your song, Summer in a Dream, the most. As Xiao Jin spoke, he had already found the CD and put it into the DVD player. This song, Summer in a Dream, was a love song with a little sadness. The male and female protagonists in the MV were a pair of young lovers. They had an unforgettable love, but in the end, they were forced to break up by reality. In the last scene of the MV, the sky was full of fallen petals. Under the parasol tree, the young man smiled brightly and charmingly, but the figure was gradually blown away by the summer wind and disappeared. It was said to be forever, but only one person has been waiting in the same place. It was said to be together, but it can only happen in a dream. Summer. Night came quietly. Accompanied by the beautiful and pleasant song, Su Wan lay on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly, Xiao Jin quietly withdrew from Su Wan's bedroom. In the living room, the dim yellow light of the floor lamp dyed the whole living room mysterious and dangerous. The LCD TV was still repeatedly playing the song, Summer in a Dream. Xiao Jin narrowed his eyes and hummed softly along with the melody on the TV. When the midnight bell rang, when the song in the MV came to an end, a slight sound of the door opening rang in Xiao Jin's ears. You're finally here. Xiao Jin suddenly opened his eyes, the pair of eagle-like eyes radiated a cold light. You know I'm here and you still dare to appear. Your courage is really commendable. The reason why you're here, isn't it because you've been waiting for me? The hoarse female voice, with an indifferent tone, I just came to keep your appointment. Keep my appointment. Xiao Jin stood up and slowly turned to look at the pale woman in pajamas in front of him. What should I call you? Xia Yushan. No, I think I should call you, Summer. Summer. The Xia Yushan in front of him seemed to have fallen into some kind of memory. That's my name from a long, long time ago. Yes, even after your debut, you have been hiding your previous name, your previous identity. What are you running from? No, it should be that you don't want someone to know your true identity. Xiao Jin's tone and eyes were cold. Hearing his words, Xia Yushan's eyes flashed. Detective Xiao, you seem to know a lot, so, now I'll give you a chance to show off your reasoning skills. Xia Yushan smiled and sat on the sofa, playing the song, Summer in a Dream, again. Seeing that she was so fearless, Xiao Jin also smiled faintly. You were originally called Summer. When you were 16 years old, you went abroad for treatment because of a mental illness. You changed your identity abroad. After returning to China, you debuted under the name Xia Yushan and became a hit with the song, Summer in a Dream. Speaking of this, Xiao Jin's eyes swept over Xia Yushan. You have hidden this past too well. If it weren't for the fact that I have been tracking down Su Ziming's interpersonal network, and if it weren't for the fact that I accidentally saw his photos in middle school, it would be really difficult for me to associate the current you with Summer. But countless evidence shows that you are Summer. 14 years ago, you and Su Ziming knew each other, and he was your first love. First love, sad and unforgettable. The song, Summer in a Dream, was written to commemorate Summer herself, and the other person in the lyrics referred to Su Ziming. Su Ziming is Bai Chuan's eldest young master. He is handsome and elegant. He was the dream lover of many girls in middle school, but few people know that under his gentle appearance, he has the heart of a prodigal son. He hides himself so well that countless people are deceived by his appearance. In fact, in addition to being a playboy, Su Ziming has another unknown quirk. He is a voice fetish. Su Ziming has never had the slightest resistance to a sweet and ethereal voice. Back then, you were just a very ordinary girl, but Su Ziming pursued you relentlessly. That was because he was obsessed with your voice. Xiao Jin sighed at this point. He also found out about this after investigating Su Ziming's love history, even including Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao. They were not very beautiful actresses and their acting skills were average, but the two were born with a good voice and their voices were particularly pleasant to listen to. Su Ziming's affection for you was only temporary, but you gave everything to him, including your body and mind. When he was ruthless and left, you were unwilling to accept the cruel reality, so you got sick. Xiao Jin's gaze became complicated as he spoke of this. Since ancient times, an infatuated girl would always meet a fickle lover. Su Ziming turned away contentedly to find his next prey, but Summer's life was ruined by him. Xiao Jin had seen Summer's case abroad through his own channels. In order to treat her emotional trauma, she split into another personality. This person was Xia Yushan. Chapter 239. Fate was hard to explain. It was precisely because it could not be controlled by humans that it was called fate. When Xia Tian was young, she was emotionally hurt. She closed her heart and gave birth to a second personality, Xia Yushan. Xia Yushan was clean and simple and had the voice of nature. She liked music and conquered everyone's ears with the song, Summer in a Dream. And her appearance once again conquered Su Ziming. More than a decade later, the girl who felt inferior and autistic back then became a cheerful and pure woman. Su Ziming did not recognize that Xia Yushan was Xia Tian at all. And Xia Yushan, who had her memories of Xia Tian sealed, fell in love with Su Ziming again. Su Ziming, you killed him. Xiao Jin voiced out his speculation in a low voice. On the day Su Ziming proposed to you, he used that song, and he even used the lyrics of that song. Those lyrics helped you recover your memory. No, to be exact, it was the memory of your main persona that was awakened at that moment. You hated Su Ziming because of love. You can't trust him anymore. You stubbornly believe that he not only destroyed you but also destroyed Xia Yushan. You can't let Xia Yushan repeat your mistakes. You want her to always maintain the purest heart and help you see the most beautiful things in the world. And all the betrayals and deceptions, only you can bear it yourself, so you carefully planned a car accident. What evidence do you have to prove that I murdered Su Ziming? Hearing Xiao Jin's words, Xia Yushan still looked indifferent and did not panic at all. I have no evidence. Xiao Jin spread his hands. I have met a lot of smart suspects over the years. They have tried their best to escape the sanctions of the law, but unfortunately, the net of heaven has long arms and none of them can get away with it. And this time, Su Ziming's case really stumped me. At this point, Xiao Jin stared at Xia Yushan's face with a torch-like gaze. Miss Xia, do you know what the most difficult case in the world is? No matter how smart and cunning the murderer is, he will always leave flaws and clues. I always have a way to bring such a person to justice, but the most difficult thing for me is that when a victim in a homicide case desperately erases the evidence of her murder for the murderer, what should I do? Hearing Xiao Jin's words, Xia Yushan's face finally changed. At this moment, her face was extremely ugly. It's me, I did it. I killed Ziming. I thought he lied to me again. I can't be lied to by him again. That day, I was in the car at the beginning. I got him drunk. I was the one who faked the car accident. At the last moment, he woke up. He woke up, but he didn't stop everything from happening. In fact, he purposely stepped on the accelerator. Summer, I love you. With you, the summer of my life can blossom. That was Sue Zimming's death message to her. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? Was it that voice that Sue Zimming had been searching for in the vast sea of people all these years, or was it the girl who smiled shyly under the wudong tree in his memory? Actually, from the song Summer in a Dream, Sue Zimming already knew that Xia Yushan was the person he had been looking for all these years. Summer, I've let you down. Give me a chance to love you again, okay? When life passed away, bright red flowers bloomed in the dead sea of love. This was the so-called fate. Zimming is dead, I am still alive. I am in pain, do you know that? Xia Yushan suddenly stood up and looked at Xiao Jin with tears on her face. I am a murderer, arrest me, arrest me. I'm just a detective. I have no right to arrest you, and, strictly speaking, it was Sue Zimming himself who stepped on the accelerator in the end. He committed suicide. You didn't kill him. The reason why he chose to commit suicide was so that he wouldn't implicate you. He wanted you to live well. Xiao Jin took a step forward and raised his hand to press Xia Yushan's shoulder hard. I know you regret it, so, you thought of death. The injury on your head and your last car accident were all intentional, but, you didn't die, so you wanted to poison yourself again. The reason why you chose to use thallium was because your heart hurts and you regret everything you have done. Summer, you are now called Xia Yushan. Summer only exists in the past, only in dreams. You have to remember that you are Xia Yushan. You should have a new life, a new life. Xiao Jin followed this case for more than half a year. In fact, after locking the suspect on Xia Yushan, Xiao Jin listened to the song Summer in a Dream again and again. He asked himself more than once, if he found the truth, if Xia Yushan admitted her crime, then what should he do? The law was nothing more than human feelings. If a life must be paid for a life, Sue Zimming also used his own life in exchange for Xia Yushan's life. A new life. Xia Yushan stared blankly at Xiao Jin in front of her. So, I shouldn't exist, right? There is no Summer in this world, right? Yes, Summer should follow Zimming and leave together. Otherwise, Zimming will feel very lonely on the road to the netherworld. He is very lonely. I want to accompany him. While talking, Xia Yushan suddenly fainted in Xiao Jin's arms. Looking at the unconscious person in his arms, Xiao Jin couldn't help raising his hand and gently stroke Xia Yushan's long hair. Sleep, when you wake up, everything will be fine. I said, with me here, it's okay. This night, Xiao Jin had been sitting in front of Xia Yushan's bed. She slept peacefully all night and never woke up again. Everything was over. Summer's personality would not appear again. Early in the morning, when Su Wan opened her eyes again, the first thing she met was Xiao Jin's bloodshot eyes. You're awake. The man's voice was low and hoarse. Su Wan sat up from the bed and raised her hand to touch the wound on her forehead that was still bandaged. Her head hurt a little, but she should have slept well last night, right? But Xiao Jin, you really looked at me all night. Su Wan widened her eyes and looked at Xiao Jin's haggard face. Xiao Jin just shrugged indifferently. This is my responsibility, and with me here, you are very safe. Thank you. Su Wan thanked Xiao Jin with a serious face. Why don't you go to sleep again? I'll go to the kitchen to make something to eat. Su Wan stood up as she spoke. Looking at her departing back, Xiao Jin couldn't help but reveal a smile. With Xiao Jin's company, Su Wan had been resting very well these days. There were no more strange things happening at home, and after she changed to a new mobile phone, the strange phone call did not come again. During the few days when Su Wan was resting and recuperating at home, Fan Ku brought Lu Yu to look for Su Wan once. At that time, Fan Ku was holding a photo in his hand. The photo was of a gloomy man. It was said that this man was the suspect in the murder of Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao. I've seen him. At first glance at the man's photo, Su Wan's eyes widened sharply. I saw his back on the street that day. I have a picture of him in my mobile phone, but it's just a back view. However, I lost my mobile phone, and I actually don't remember knowing such a person. Hearing Su Wan's words, Fan Ku looked puzzled, and Xiao Jin leaned against Fan Ku's ear and whispered a few words, and Fan Ku nodded hesitantly. When Fan Ku left with his people, Su Wan still looked gloomy. Xiao Jin, who do you think that person is? Why does my mobile phone have a photo of his back, but I don't know him? Xia Yushan had never seen him before. Maybe it was the person Xia Tian had seen. Moreover, if it was just a back view, could it have been taken in a hurry by Xia Tian? Maybe, the murderer had appeared by her side before, and Xia Tian, who felt the danger, instinctively took a picture of the murderer's back and saved it, and Xia Yushan's personality may not know anything about this matter. After confirming that Xia Tian had fallen asleep, Xiao Jin felt that there was no need to let Xia Yushan stay in the past grudges. Don't think about it, I will continue to protect you during this period until the murderer is arrested and brought to justice. Xiao Jin looked at Su Wan with a righteous expression. Hearing his words, Su Wan also smiled with peace of mind. The mission time limit of 30 days has now passed. Chapter 240. Sometimes, we can always guess the beginning of a story, but we will never know what the ending is. At the end of October, the police held a press conference. The murderer of Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao was killed by the police on the spot when he attempted to hurt Xia Yushan. After this incident, the heavenly queen of the music industry, Xia Yushan, decided to retire from the music industry. She left at the most brilliant and dazzling time, leaving everyone with her legend forever. Many entertainment weekly magazines still chased after Xia Yushan, and some well-informed media even released the news that she already had a boyfriend and planned to marry someone, and her rumored boyfriend was said to be a detective. In November, the cold rain turned into ice. Standing in front of Su Ziming's grave and looking at the still handsome photo on the tombstone, Su Wan slowly bent down and gently placed a bunch of lilies in front of the tombstone. Ziming, I'm fine. How are you doing down there? Su Wan raised her hand and stroked the photo on Su Ziming's tombstone. She gently leaned her face against the tombstone and said in a low voice, I have sent Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao to accompany you. You won't be lonely. Unfortunately, you can't see your favorite Xia Tian because I want to use her body to start a new life. Rain, cold, desperate. When she turned around to leave, she threw away the big black umbrella in her hand. The pure black color formed a dazzling contrast with the pure white lilies in front of the grave. Xia Chen was sick. Her hatred, her pain, her resentment, and the second personality formed by her injuries was definitely not a symbol of purity. Xia Yushan, she had always represented darkness and despair. Yushan. Outside the cemetery, Xiao Jin stood there with an umbrella. Seeing that Su Wan was drenched in the rain, he immediately took a few steps forward to help her block the cold rain. Where's your umbrella? Don't catch a cold. I'm fine. I left the umbrella with Ziming. I'm afraid he'll be cold in such a heavy rain. Su Wan's face was pale as she weakly smiled at Xiao Jin. Silly girl. Xiao Jin raised his hand and rubbed her long wet hair. Let's go home. Yes. Su Wan nodded and let Xiao Jin hug her into his red Land Rover. In fact, Xiao Jin was also a person with some assets. Being a police officer and detective were both his hobbies. Sister Sang has already helped me transfer the ownership of the apartment. Tonight is my last night there. Leaning on the front passenger seat of the car, Soo-won whispered softly. What are your plans for the future? Xiao Jin couldn't help asking her. I don't know. Soo-won blankly looked at the dark golden tattoo on her wrist. I'll sleep well tonight. Tomorrow's matters. Who knows? Well, you should have a good rest. I'll look for you for breakfast tomorrow morning. All right. Soo-won nodded and then leaned on Xiao Jin's car, closed her eyes and pretended to sleep. It was midnight. Xiao Jin, who was used to the reversal of day and night, was about to go to rest when he suddenly received an email on his computer. The sender was Xia Yushan. Xiao Jin was stunned for a moment and clicked on the email. There was only the number of a bank safe in the email and its password. What did that mean? Xiao Jin was stunned. He grabbed his coat and ran out of the door. Xia Yushan's door was not locked, and everything in the apartment was exactly the same as it was during the day. The only difference was that the apartment was empty at this time and Xia Yushan had long disappeared. Xiao Jin's face became very bad. He thought of a possibility, but he forced himself not to think about that possibility. The next day, as soon as the bank opened, Xiao Jin came to the bank and found the safe that Xia Yushan left for him. There was a mobile phone in it. That was the mobile phone that Xia Yushan lost. Turning on the mobile phone, Xiao Jin stared blankly at the screen of the mobile phone. At this time, the password on the mobile phone had been removed, and there was only one sentence on the entire screen. It is said that the little finger of the left hand is connected to a person's lifelong marriage. Xiao Jin, do you believe it? Hooking your finger is a promise for a lifetime. The oath on the left little finger is never to betray. Those who betray should be punished by death. Su Ziming is dead. Xia Tian has been depressed and even wanted to commit suicide because of him, but what about Lin Lulu and the others? What qualifications do they have to have a new lover? They should all go to hell. They should accompany Ziming. Otherwise, he will feel very lonely. Yes, the person who planned to kill Su Ziming was Xia Yushan, and Su Ziming's confession before his death stimulated her main personality, Xia Tian. After Xia Tian woke up, Xia Yushan's subpersonality fell asleep. In the past 6 months, Xia Tian has been depressed, and she has even made up her mind to accompany Su Ziming to death. Before the car accident, she had committed suicide by cutting her wrist and was later rescued by Big Sister Sang. It was because of her extreme behavior this time that she awakened Xia Yushan's personality in her body, which was the truth why the murderer only started to commit the crime after half a year. Lin Lulu and Tong Xinyao were killed by Xia Yushan. Those two people were completely unguarded against her. Xia Yushan thought that her actions were flawless, but who knew that all her crimes were seen by a fanatic fan who had a crush on her. That day, she noticed that she was being followed. In a hurry, she only took a picture of the person's back, and then the person began to call and harass her. At this time, Xia Yushan, who was in a mess, had a car accident, and then Xiao Jin appeared. This was a typical encounter plot between the male and female protagonists. A car accident, 2 lives, and an old case was involved. Heaven's net is broad, who can escape punishment? Who can get away scot-free? Xia Yushan disappeared, completely disappeared from Xiao Jin's world. Later, Xiao Jin spent a lot of money to buy back Xia Yushan's apartment. In that apartment, he found Xia Yushan's diary, saw the photo album she had kept for many years, and even found the place where she hid poisons and murder weapons. It turned out that she had placed all the truth and all the answers here, but unfortunately, he didn't notice it. Women, crazy with jealousy. Even if that person was her other self, she couldn't help but go crazy with jealousy. Yushan, marry me, you are my whole Xia Tian. Su Ziming's proposal became the source of Xia Yushan's jealousy of Xia Tian. At that moment, she understood that the person Su Ziming loved was Xia Tian. All the sins had started from that one sentence: lost space, redemption mission successful. The voice of the mission success echoed in Su Wan's ears and she slowly opened her eyes. Everything in the mission world was like a dream. In fact, on the day Su Wan returned to Xia Yushan's house, she thoroughly checked the entire house, and then she unsurprisingly found Xia Yushan's murder weapon, as well as the bloody clothes. At that moment, Su Wan actually understood that Xia Yushan was the heroine of this mission world, and her mission was not to escape the murderer's pursuit, but to get away with it in front of the police and the male protagonist. Getting away with it, this was Xia Yushan's ultimate goal. This was the meaning of staying alive. Coming out of the mission cabin, Su Wan subconsciously glanced at the dark golden tattoo on her wrist. When she was taking a bath at Xia Yushan's house that day, Su Wan noticed that there was a shallow scar hidden under the dark golden tattoo, which should have been left by cutting her wrist to commit suicide. Later, Su Wan contacted Big Sister Zheng at night and learned a lot of things from Big Sister Zheng. At that time, she guessed that Xia Yushan should have a dual personality. Without any script, Su Wan decided to take a risk and staged a good show of wanting to kill herself in front of the male protagonist, Xiao Jin. According to Su Wan's experience in doing missions, since Xiao Jin, the male protagonist, appeared around Xia Yushan, then he must have some evidence in his hands, or he had long suspected Xia Yushan. And through this show, Su Wan really learned the truth from Xiao Jin's mouth half a year ago. As the protagonist of a world, being smart was not a bad thing, but Xiao Jin was too smart. The so-called cleverness can be mistaken by one's own cleverness. He saw Xia Yushan seeking death again and again with his own eyes, which made him subconsciously believe that Xia Yushan would not be a murderer. Everything is over, Su Wan said to herself in her heart. She was not constantly thinking about that mission, she was just thinking about the suffering Su Rui suffered. Everything is over, dear. Lost space, prison domain. In the desolate and chaotic prison domain, there were the sounds of souls wailing everywhere. Su Rui, released. A mechanical voice suddenly sounded. Opening his eyes from the chaotic darkness, the pain of being constantly squeezed and whipped still seemed to remain in his soul. Su Rui, welcome back. Su Su's voice was still as indifferent as water. You should say, welcome back to the human world. A red light flashed in Su Rui's eyes and he stood up, his body still shaking uncontrollably. Catching a glimpse of Su Rui's eyes, Su Su's eyes flashed. You are really amazing, no one has ever been as spirited as you after coming out of the prison domain. Really? Su Rui raised his eyebrows indifferently. That's because I have a capable wife, you know. Su Su nodded. I have read the script for her redemption mission. She completed it very well. It was a daunting experience without mishap. Her luck was pretty good. I didn't expect you to care about her. Su Rui took a few steps forward and looked at Su Su in front of him. I don't care what happened between you and her, now she is my woman, and never needs other men's care. Oh. Su Su was interested. He looked at Su Rui with a smile on his face. Su Rui, do you know? Your ranking has fallen again recently. So what? I'm happy. General Su expressed that he was just that willful. Following his wife, he was happy to deduct points. Actually, I just wanted to tell you. Su Su paused and looked at Su Rui sharply. The reason why I became this department's number one is because there is no mission target in this world that I can't conquer. So, Minister, are you declaring war on me? Su Rui had no choice but to put on a serious expression and looked coldly at Su Su. No, not declaring war. I just want to know, what is love? Su Su didn't say the last few words because Su Rui's communicator rang at this time. To be precise, his locator rang. Su Rui couldn't wait to enter the mission. I'm going to do the mission. Su Rui waved his hand and walked past Su Su. The moment he brushed shoulders, his gaze darkened and he whispered in a low voice. Chapter 241. Dongchuan, Mainland. This was the world of summoners. On this mainland, summoners had an extraordinary status. They could summon divine weapons and divine beasts to fight against the magical beasts on the mainland and save the world. The entire Dongchuan mainland was split into two by the Sunset Mountains. The east side of the Sunset Mountains was where humans lived. There were countless countries, while the west side of the Sunset Mountains was where dwarves, elves, and beastmen and druids gathered. In the Sunset Mountains, a large group of magical beasts gathered. Because magical beasts reproduced quickly, they needed to eliminate warriors who weren't strong enough. Therefore, every once in a while, high-level magical beasts would launch a wave of beasts to attack human towns. While plundering resources, they were also eliminating the weak. This was the magical beast's rule of survival. Of course, this had nothing to do with Su Wan right now. She entered the mainland and became the third miss of the second family in Might City, Olan Country. According to the Su family's tradition, only direct descendants had the right to cultivate in the main branch of the Su family in Might City. The reason why Su Wan could make an exception and enter the main branch of the Su family was because other than a genius successor, there was also a daughter. This daughter, Su Wu, had just passed her 15th birthday. According to Dongchuan mainland's tradition, if a person had the chance to become a summoner, they would be able to successfully activate their spiritual power before they turned 15 and successfully summon their personal divine weapon or divine beast. However, Su Wu still couldn't summon anything up until now. Plus, this eldest miss of the Su family was cowardly and weak. She had been secretly in love with Might City's Castellan's son, Long Li. She would often secretly watch young Castellan Long cultivate with her servants. This wasn't a secret in Might City. Because of Su Wu, the entire Su family became a joke. Thankfully, at this time, a genius girl appeared in a branch of the Su family in a small town. She was Su Wan. Su Wan successfully activated her spiritual power when she was 14. Although she awakened late, her personal divine weapon was a third-grade profound sword. Swords were the king of weapons. People who could summon a profound sword were all rare geniuses. Su family was a family that focused on swords. After finding out about Su Wan, the Su family immediately sent people to bring her to Might City. From then on, she replaced Su Wu and became the most pampered young miss of the Su family. As for the legitimate daughter, Su Wu, because she was weak and useless, she lived in the most run-down courtyard in the Su family. She was bullied by the servants in the Su family. Unable to bear the humiliation, she could only secretly pray for her brother who was training in the faraway Sunset Mountains to come back soon. Unfortunately, before her brother, Su Zhan, could come back, Su Wu was killed. It was also at this time that the female assassin from another world, Su Wu, transmigrated into this good-for-nothing lady's body. From then on, she was like a phoenix in nirvana. She started her legendary path of counterattacking, killing monsters, leveling up, abusing trash, taking in beautiful men. The female agent's transmigration path was just that smooth and short. There were so many male supporting characters in this world that they could form a long line. Might City was just a beginner's village where the female lead conquered the mainland. In the future, she would have to change many maps. If Su Rui became the male supporting character of another map, for example, the Elf Prince, then Su Wan really wanted to cry. Right now, Su Wan was sitting in her room. She forced herself not to think about Su Rui's matters. She closed her eyes and quietly sorted out the original owner's memories. The current plot had already developed to the point where the female lead, Darren, successfully summoned her first profound beast. And it was a small white wolf dog. Don't look down on this lecherous, gluttonous, and cute dog. It's actually not a dog. Could it be? It's a dragon. What a joke. It's not like it's the White Dragon King, okay, it was actually a divine beast, the Silver Moon White Tiger. Right now, it was just sealed by its enemy, the Great Demon King. Ever since she had the divine beast, Little White, the female lead, Su Wu, started using the method that Little White taught her to open up a new path as a summoner. She could take other people's weapons or the magical beasts she saw into her spiritual sense. Then when she needed them, she could summon them at will. This summoning method was passed down from ancient times. Now, it had been lost. Su Wu, who had such a heaven-defying cheat, could summon whatever she wanted from now on. If she encountered a strong enemy, she could even close the door and summon the divine beast. In short, her path to leveling up was too easy. Of course, this was all in the future. Right now, Su Wu and her divine beast were still unpopular in the Su family. The Su family was collectively blind and couldn't tell how powerful the female lead was. But after the female lead transmigrated, she attracted the male lead's attention when she casually strolled on the streets. How could the rumored good-for-nothing, love-struck, and cowardly Miss Su have such bright eyes? How could she have such a valiant temperament? This didn't make sense. As the successor of the #1 family in Might City, Xiao Yan had always thought highly of himself. Plus, the Xiao family and Su family had an engagement. But the Xiao family looked down on the good-for-nothing Su Wu. Later, when Su Wan came to the Su family went with the flow and wanted to betroth Su Wan to Xiao Yan. To be honest, the elegant and distinguished Xiao Yan's first impression of Su Wan was pretty good. She was an arrogant genius young lady. Although she came from an unremarkable branch, she possessed a confidence that many people didn't have. After interacting with Su Wan twice, Xiao Yan was quite satisfied with her. The two also confirmed their relationship under the arrangements of the two families. But ever since he accidentally discovered the interesting Su Wu on the streets, Xiao Yan couldn't help but be attracted to her. He started paying attention to Su Wu's matters and couldn't help but follow her secretly. There was once when Xiao Yan personally saw Su Wan bringing people to insult Su Wu. At that moment, he wanted to step forward but unexpectedly, he saw the good-for-nothing that everyone looked down on suddenly summon dozens of small iron swords. At that time, everyone around them retreated in fear. Su Wu shocked everyone with a single brilliant feat. Right now, Xiao Yan was extremely interested in her. Plus, he thought that he had seen through Su Wan's overbearing nature. He decided to cancel the engagement with Su Wan and marry Su Wu instead. Needless to say, the male lead's thoughts were beautiful. According to the original plot, his canceling of the engagement caused a huge disturbance in the Su family. Su Wan had been a genius in the family since she was young. She couldn't accept that Xiao Yan canceled the engagement, and even more so, she couldn't accept that Xiao Yan took the initiative to marry Su Wu. What was even more dramatic was that Su Wu actually rejected Xiao Yan's proposal without hesitation in front of everyone. Are you kidding me? Do you think the female lead is a cabbage on the streets? You can buy it and throw it away whenever you want. That's right. There were countless handsome men waiting for the female lead. Therefore, male lead, you still have a long way to go in order to chase after your wife, third miss. The Su family servant's voice interrupted Su Wan's thoughts. Although she was a direct descendant of the Su family was still used to calling her third miss. What is it? Su Wan glanced at the blue-clothed young lady in front of her. Her name was Su Pei. She was the maid that the master assigned to Su Wan. Su Pei was originally from another branch of the Su family, but she didn't have much talent, so she was chosen to be the lowest-ranked servant in the main family. "Third Miss, Master Xiao is here. He's in the guest room. The master ordered me to bring you over." "Oh." Hearing Su Pei's words, Su Wan slowly stood up. If she guessed correctly, the male lead was here to break off the engagement, right? Chapter 242. Su family's guest hall. Right now, Su family's lord, Su Ye, was chatting with Xiao Yan with a smile on his face. The elders sitting around them were calm like an ancient well. Xiao Yan was chatting with Lord Su here and there. He was clearly absent-minded. Young people were full of vigor. Master Su understood Xiao Yan's thoughts, but he found it strange that it was normal for Xiao Yan to come and see Su Wan. Why did he ask him to bring Su Wu over? Not long after, Su Pei led Su Wan over. The bright and beautiful young woman wore purple attire. Everyone's eyes brightened as soon as she entered. Su Wan greets family head, elders, and Master Xiao. After Su Wan entered, she started greeting everyone elegantly and politely. Su Ye kept a smile on his face while Xiao Yan merely glanced at Su Wan carelessly. Thinking of how she led a group of people to insult Su Wu that day, he felt that she was hypocritical and disgusting. Feeling Xiao Yan's unkind little gaze, Su Wan was automatically immune to it. "There are a lot of people who hate me. Who do you think you are?" Not long later, Su Wu appeared at the door of the guest hall without any resentment. During this period of time, Su Wu had grasped the ancient summoning method that Little White gave her. She had been cultivating hard and had tried to store a lot of weapons. Her realm had slowly risen from the lowest grade 9 summoner to grade 8. As long as she reached grade 8, she could store and summon higher level weapons. But now, her father suddenly summoned her to the guest hall. Apparently, her ex-fiancé wanted to see her. Su Wu was puzzled. Why was that scumbag looking for her? Was he going to humiliate himself again in front of a large group of people? "I'm here." Feeling extremely displeased, Su Wu carried Little White and walked into the guest hall listlessly. She had been Su family's disgrace and joke for a long time. Therefore, Su Wu didn't care about her image at all. She also knew that the elders in Su family looked down on her. Even the reason why her father didn't chase her out of Su family was because she had a monstrous genius brother. He had borrowed Su Zhan's glory. Unfortunately, that evildoer went to train in the setting sun mountains. He was gone for 3 years. God damn it, who knows if he'll come back or not. Therefore, Su Wu felt that it was better to rely on herself than her big brother. Su Wu had been absent-minded the moment she walked in. She didn't know any etiquette at all. This made Su Ye's expression darken. Before Lord Su could fly into a rage, Xiao Yan hurriedly smiled and stood up. "Lord Su, I actually have something to discuss with you this time." What's the matter, nephew Xiao?" Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Su Ye could only put Su Wu's matter aside for now. He turned to look at Xiao Yan kindly. "I'm here this time for my marriage with Su Wan. Master Su, I want to break off the engagement." Su Wan's voice interrupted Xiao Yan's next words. Everyone's gaze fell on Su Wan. Xiao Yan was really caught off guard. Meanwhile, Su Wu looked at Su Wan in astonishment and suspicion. This arrogant woman actually wanted to break off the engagement. Did she find a better man than Xiao Yan? Speaking of which, in Su Wu's memory, only Long Li and Su Zhan could be mentioned in the same breath as Xiao Yan in Might City. This woman couldn't have taken a fancy to Long Li, right? What kind of taste did she have? Su Wu seemed to have forgotten that her original body had always been infatuated with Long Li. Su Wan, don't talk nonsense. Hearing Su Wan's words, Suya immediately slammed the table and shouted coldly with a sunken expression. You're right. I'm not talking nonsense. Lord, this is my marriage. Su Wan doesn't want to regret it for the rest of my life. Master Xiao is indeed a dragon among men. Unfortunately, he's not the person in my heart. Su Wan knew that Suya would lose face if she broke off the engagement. He would be really angry, but she definitely wouldn't wait for the male lead to break off the engagement. Plus, this was the start of the original body, Su Wan, being used as cannon fodder. It was also the start of the male lead and female lead's lifelong entanglement. From this moment onwards, Su Wan was going to change everyone's fate. Nonsense. You're simply nonsense. Suya angrily cursed a few more times before turning to look at Xiao Yan awkwardly. Nephew, don't mind him. He's still young and he's throwing a tantrum. Don't take it to heart. Lord Su, I'm here to break off the engagement. After some hesitation, Xiao Yan still said what was on his mind. Everyone in the hall froze hearing Xiao Yan's words. What's going on now? Did you two plan to play with us? So Master Xiao also found out that we're not suitable. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, Su Wan smiled and said in a low voice. People with different beliefs can't make plans together. Xiao Yan glanced coldly at Su Wan. He didn't know why Su Wan wanted to break off the engagement too. Could it be that she saw through his thoughts, so she made the first move? Feeling the strange atmosphere between Su Wan and Xiao Yan, Suya also smelled something different. Cough. Nephew Xiao, you can't be impulsive about marriage. I think we should take our time to think about this. You see, I still have a very important matter to attend to. Let's stop here today, shall we? Su Wan, come with me. Saying this, Suya turned around and left through the side door with Su Wan. Xiao Yan was speechless. Lord Su, you're just blatantly playing with us, right? Seeing that the Lord had left, the elders all got up to bid farewell to Xiao Yan. Su Wu even took this chance to slip away. Soon, Xiao Yan was the only one left in the hall. What's going on? Master Xiao was really depressed. Unfortunately, this was the Su family. No matter how depressed he was, he had nowhere to vent it. Su family, Lord Study. Tell me. What's going on? Suya sat in front of his desk and stared at Su Wan with a burning gaze. Master Xiao wants to break off the engagement. I had no choice but to ask in advance. Su Wan met Suya's gaze and answered in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. How did you know that Xiao Yan wants to break off the engagement? Could it be that the Xiao family is planning on forming a marriage alliance with the Zhao family to weaken our Xiao family? Zhao family was the third largest family in Might City. They had been eyeing the Su family's position. To weaken the Su family, they don't necessarily have to form a marriage alliance with the Zhao family. It's the same with the Su family. Of course, they won't choose me. Saying this, Su Wan lifted her head and looked at Suya. Lord, you're wise and mighty. Xiao family's scheme isn't worth mentioning in your eyes. Humph. Just a small trick. Hearing Su Wan's flattery, Suya's expression turned much better. Su Wan, you can leave first. Zhang will be back in a few days. Once he returns from his training, he'll be the #1 summoner in Might City. By then, the Xiao family will have to form a marriage alliance with us. Su Zhan, hearing Suya mention Su Zhan's name, Su Wan's heart skipped a beat. In the original plot, Su Zhan was also a rare genius. He really doted on his sister. He was also a supporting male character, but he probably wasn't a passionate supporting male character, right? Why did she suddenly feel uncertain? At this moment, in the sky 1,000 miles away from Might City, a huge eagle was spreading its wings. Two men were sitting on the eagle's back. The man in the lead had a handsome face and cold eyes. The person behind him was dressed like a manservant. At this moment, his entire face was pale as he tightly grabbed onto the corner of the man's clothes. Eldest young master, we're not in a hurry to return to the Sioux clan. Can you make your mystical beast fly slower? Get off if you're scared. The man's cold voice was mixed with the whistling wind. Chapter 243. In the middle of the night, Might City, Sioux family. Screech. Following the sound of the wind-chasing eagle, all the summoners in Sioux family woke up. This sound was the 6th-level summoning beast, the wind-chasing eagle. In the entire Might City, there were only a handful of families with 6th-level summoning beasts. Only the Long family had this kind of flying beast that could travel thousands of miles in a day. Could it be that someone from the city lord's residence had come to visit in the middle of the night? In an instant, the entire Sioux family was busy. Sue Wan was also woken up by the sharp cry of the eagle. She turned around in annoyance, planning to continue sleeping. What could happen to the Sioux family? There wouldn't be any big boss in the newbie village for a while. She should sleep peacefully and think about how to contact Su Rue. Third miss. Before Su Wan could fall asleep again, she was woken up by Su Pei's voice. Could she still sleep peacefully in the middle of the night? What's the matter? Su Wan got up from the bed and looked irritably at Su Pei, whose face was full of surprise and infatuation. Third miss, Master is back. Oh. Su Wan responded. Wasn't it just Su Zhan back? What did you say? Su Wan, who wanted to lie down and change her position, suddenly sat up. Su Zhan is back. Su Pei was speechless. She actually dared to call her Adonis by his name. Yes, Master is back. Su Zhan, Master Su, the enchanting Adonis in the hearts of thousands of girls in the Su family. In short, every time Master was mentioned, Su Pei felt her maiden heart ripple. Master is so handsome, Master is so gentle, Master is so amazing. Su Wan frowned on the bed. She didn't have the mood to look at Su Pei's infatuated face. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. Su Zhan couldn't have come back at this time. Unless, Su Wan's expression suddenly changed. She didn't even bother to put on her coat. Wearing thin pajamas, she wanted to dash out barefooted. But before she reached the door, her door was pushed open. Huff! Along with the cold wind, a cold body hugged her tightly. Ah! Su Pei, who was carrying Su Wan's boots, saw the man hugging Su Wan at the door. She couldn't help but open her mouth wide and shouted in disbelief. Did I hold the shoes the wrong way? The eldest young master was hugging the third young Mississippi. No, he was nibbling, no, touching her. Oh my God, my maiden heart is broken into pieces, get out. With a cold shout, Su Pei felt a sharp pain in her waist. Then, she was pushed out of the door by a strong gust of cold wind. She fell flat on her face. Su Pei, I'm so sad. I feel like I won't love him again in the room. Su Rue kissed Su Wan while the two of them retreated. When they retreated to the bedside, their clothes had already been taken off. Wife, you've worked hard. Su Rue gently bit Su Wan's earlobe and whispered in her ear. It's not hard. You're the one who's suffering. Su Wan's eyes were a little moist. She wasn't a woman who liked to cry, but at this moment, in Su Rue's arms, she really wanted to cry loudly. She wanted to tell him loudly that she loved him. She couldn't live without him. It is very bitter. Su Rui glanced at the tears in the corners of Su Wan's eyes. His heart ached as he lifted his hand to help her wipe them. In the next second, he was already pressing down on Su Wan's body. Wife, how are you going to compensate me? Compensate? Su Wan couldn't help but smile through her tears. The spiritual power in her body circulated. She flipped over and pressed Su Rui under her body. We'll fight for 300 rounds until you can't fight anymore. What do you think? Ah. Su Rui furrowed his brows under Su Wan's body. He had a thoughtful expression on his face. This suggestion isn't bad, but you have to be prepared for a long battle. This general's fighting strength is definitely MMM. Su Wan used her kiss to block Su Rui's words. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? General Su was speechless. If I don't battle you until you can't get out of bed for 3 days and 3 nights, then I'm not Su Rui. Thus, the next day, in the Su family, where's the master? Have any of you seen the master? Speaking of which, the master came back riding the Windchaser Eagle last night. He was so cool and at ease, but in the blink of an eye, he was gone. The clan leader said that the master was tired and needed to rest, so these people dispersed. However, they didn't see the master at the clan's cultivation field this morning. He didn't even come to eat breakfast. Could it be, the master was on the verge of breaking through again, so he went into seclusion to break through as soon as he came back? The third miss didn't come today either. It was unknown who muttered this, but it immediately caused a wave of resonance. Recently, the third miss and Master Zhao's engagement to be broken off had caused a commotion in the Su family. Although Su Wan was from a branch family, she was a summoner genius. Many disciples in the Su family had a good impression of her. Since the engagement with the Zhao family was broken off, they shouldn't let the goodies flow into the family's field. It'd be good for their own people to digest the news. Suya was speechless. Good my ass. My son has been kidnapped, damn it. I only saw my son once last night. I didn't even get to talk to him before that damned brat went straight to his woman. He still hasn't come out yet. Speaking of which, when did Su Wan and Su Zhan hook up? Pfft, what hook up? That was definitely free love. Although Su Wan was still Xiao Yan's fiancé back then, cough. Suya put away his chaotic thoughts and coughed lightly. Su Wan has been in seclusion for the past few days. Without my permission, no one is allowed to approach her courtyard. Violators will be punished according to the family rules. Hearing Suya's words, the disciples of the Su family immediately nodded and obeyed. The few elders who knew the truth were speechless. Patriarch, you're going all out for your son Suya. Son, I can only help you up to this point just like that. 3 days later. Cough. Suya stood outside Su Wan's courtyard with a serious expression. He looked at Su Pei and Su Liang, who were guarding the door, and asked seriously, Third Miss and Master, cough, have they broken through yet? Su Pei was speechless. No. Su Liang shook his head. He was Su Zhan's personal attendant. That day, when they got off the wind-chasing eagle, the master disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, he followed the master's aura all the way to the third Miss's courtyard. In the end, he waited outside the door for 3 days. In short, the battle was intense. The master's health was worrying. You haven't broken through yet. Hearing Su Liang's words, Suya widened his eyes. Damn, are you trying to force the most useless dog in the world to death? As expected of my son. He has the same demeanor as me in the past. In short, Lord, what are you thinking of? But this can't go on like this. Suya furrowed his brows again, feeling conflicted. Should he call them out gently or should he be more violent and summon the Xian soldiers to blast them out? Just as Suya was conflicted, a surge of spiritual influence suddenly exploded in the room. This was the sign of a breakthrough. Damn, he broke through. As he was doing it, Suya was speechless. As expected of my son, so, Lord, you're a narcissist, right? The spiritual influence that soared into the sky attracted everyone in the Su family. Even Su Wu, who had been immersed in cultivation in her small courtyard, couldn't help but carry Little White and be attracted by the majestic spiritual influence. Who was breaking through to cause such a huge spiritual influence? It's Su Zhan. Su Zhan broke through. Right now, the entire Might City was shaken. Those familiar with Su Zhan's aura all rushed to the Su family in shock. Right now, Su Rui, who was in the midst of spiritual influence, looked at the weak Su Wan in his arms. He couldn't help but whisper ambiguously in her ear, "Wife, what if we go too far? We'll see." Chapter 244. The surging spiritual energy formed a spiritual cloud in the backyard of the Su residence. Not only did it startle everyone in the Su family, but the few heavyweights in Might City also came to the Su residence. Su Zhan, Su family's most monstrous genius. He was about to break through to grade 3 summoner at the age of 20. Summoners were ranked from the lowest to the 9th grade. Summoners from the 9th grade to the 6th grade were called beginner summoners. Summoners from the 5th grade to the 3rd grade were called intermediate summoners. Once a summoner surpassed the limit of the 3rd grade and ascended to the 2nd grade, they were called advanced summoners. In the Dongchuan mainland, intermediate summoners were already the mainstay of the entire mainland, while advanced summoners were the geniuses who lived in the upper class. They were the elites who had the most hope to reach a higher level. Above the advanced summoner was another realm. Might City was just a small city in Orinda country. Orinda country was just an unremarkable mid-sized country among the countless countries in Dongchuan continent. Right now, the highest level person in the entire Might City was the Castellan, Long Qinzhan. However, he was already over 60 years old this year and was still a grade 1 summoner. He was unable to break through to another level. The people of Might City didn't know what the world above advanced summoners was like. But now, they saw hope. There were 3 geniuses in Might City's younger generation. They were Long family's Long Li, Xiao family's Xiao Yan, and Su family's Su Zhan. The 3 youngsters were around the same age. Long Li and Xiao Yan were both at the peak of grade 4. They planned on advancing to grade 3 at any time. Who would have thought that Su family's Su Zhan would beat them to it? At this moment, the 2 geniuses, Long Li in white and Xiao Yan in green, were also gathered in the Su family's courtyard. Xiao Yan's eyes sparkled as he looked at the surging spiritual qi in the sky. Big brother Xiao. Long Li was the youngest of the 3, so it was normal for him to call Xiao Yan big brother. Xiao Yan turned his head and looked at Long Li. As the young Castellan of Might City, Long Li always wore white and looked high and mighty. However, only those who were familiar with him knew that under this cold and aloof appearance, there was an amusing heart. Long Li looked at Xiao Yan and then at the yard in front of him. Isn't this your fiancé's yard? Why is Su Zhan breaking through here? Xiao Yan. Young man, why do you always focus on weirdos? But speaking of which, Xiao Yan looked left and right. He really didn't see Su Wan in the crowd. Normal people wouldn't let others get close to them when they were breaking through. With Su Wan's peak rank 6 cultivation, she wasn't qualified to protect Su Zhan. This, Patriarch Su, where is the 3rd miss? Xiao Yan swore that he really just asked out of curiosity. After all, Su Wan had just broken off the engagement with him a few days ago. Suya seemed to be really unhappy at that time. Could it be that Master Su punished her to the Su family's training grounds in a fit of anger? Suya coughed. Su-won, she. Bang! Right at this moment, the spirit clouds in the surroundings suddenly burst apart, and a treasured sword with endless purple chi suddenly flew out from the spirit clouds in the sky, exuding an awe-inspiring baleful aura. This is the peerless evil sword, Purple Ming. Legends had it that this sword was forged by a swordsmith tens of thousands of years ago using the souls and bones of countless magical beasts. The day the sword was forged, it slaughtered an entire city. Only people full of baleful aura could summon it. As for the person who could truly control it, besides that swordsmith, there hadn't been a second person in tens of thousands of years. Evil sword, a peerless evil sword. For a moment, the atmosphere in the entire Su residence changed. Everyone's expressions turned solemn. Even Long Qinzhan was prepared to summon his magical weapon at any time. Once Su Zhan couldn't control this peerless evil sword, it would definitely be a disaster for Might City. At this time, the evil sword, Purple Ming, seemed to have been summoned. It carried a sharp purple aura and slashed down. In an instant, the sword aura crisscrossed and sand and stones flew everywhere. By the time everyone opened their eyes again, the residence in front of them had already turned into ruins. This was the scene that appeared in front of them. Su Zhan wore a thin shirt and held the Purple Ming sword in one hand while his other hand held the young lady next to him. "Wife, are you okay?" Dust flew everywhere. Su Rui couldn't help but use his spiritual power that hadn't dissipated to disperse the dust around Su Wan. Right now, her long hair was disheveled and she leaned against Su Rui's embrace weakly. The robe she wore wrapped around her tightly. From this, one could see how fast General Su's hands were. So what if he knew how to take off his clothes? That was a skill. There were so many men outside. General Su definitely wouldn't let his wife expose a bit of her body. Right now, everyone gathered here was dumbfounded. Su Zhan really controlled the Purple Ming sword. No, more accurately, the Purple Ming sword was obediently subdued by Su Zhan. The other families in Might City felt like they weren't feeling good. That was a peerless evil sword. It wasn't a kitchen knife used to cut meat. Just how many magical beasts did Su Zhan kill in the Sunset Mountains in the past 3 years? His baleful aura could actually subdue the Purple Ming sword. Was he going to defy the heavens? While everyone was dumbstruck, only Long Li blinked and looked at Su Rui and then at Su Wan. Did no one find the relationship between Master Su and Third Miss weird? Congratulations, family head Su. Congratulations. Long Qinzhan was the first to react in front of everyone. He congratulated Suya with a smile on his face. Congratulations. Congratulations. The others immediately surrounded Suya to congratulate him. Suya smiled faintly while secretly giving Su Liang a look. Su Liang immediately pulled Su Pei to Su Wan's side. Third Miss, look, what? Am I an eyesore standing here? Su Wan naturally understood what Suya meant. Wasn't he afraid that everyone would find out about her relationship with Su Zhan? What was this? She and Xiao Yan had already broken off the engagement. Was she still afraid of Xiao family? Scram. Su Rui lifted his hands and pulled Su Liang and Su Pei to the side. Wife, ignore them. We haven't decided the winner yet. Do you want to continue in my room? Su Rui put his arm around Su Wan's shoulders and whispered in her ears. Everyone said that there were only cows that died from exhaustion, not fields that were plowed. But General Su, you just broke through and your health bar was full. You're breaking the rules, right? No, 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 no. Su Yan shook his head furiously. I'll admit defeat, okay. She was really tired. She hadn't slept for 3 days and 3 nights. She felt like her life wasn't her own anymore. Be good. It's not your style to admit defeat so quickly. From today onwards, I'll change my style, okay? While the two of them were chatting happily, the air around them suddenly became strange. As it turned out, everyone remembered the person in question after Su-yup greeted them. But when they turned around, they were flabbergasted again. Master Su, you're hugging the third miss, right? Isn't that Xiao Yan's fiancée? Only the direct descendants of Su family had heard about Xiao Yan and Su Wan breaking off the engagement. Xiao Yan didn't even have time to discuss it with his father. Therefore, most people in Might City didn't know that the two had cancelled the engagement. Therefore, the situation became awkward. Everyone looked at Su Zhan, who acted as if no one else was around, and then at Xiao Yan, who wore a complicated expression. 2 geniuses and 1 woman. They were going to start a love rival war, right? Father. Su Rui suddenly said to Suya in the silence, Xiao Wan and I haven't slept for 3 days. Let's go back to our room and sleep. You guys can continue. Saying this, Su Rui lifted his hand and drew a summoning circle in the air, immediately summoning his Windchaser Eagle. A whirlwind blew and the Windchaser Eagle disappeared from everyone's sight with Su Rui and Su Wan. The audience was speechless. Master, you're not playing by the rules again. Chapter 245. Su Zhan's return and breakthrough became a hot topic in Might City within a day. Of course, there were also rumors about Su Zhan and Xiao Yan fighting over a woman. One had to say that the commoners in Might City were very interested in these kinds of scandals. By night time, the story of these 3 people had already been made into a touching love legend by the bards in the city. Right now, the entire Su family was busy. Su Zhan's breakthrough made the disciples of the Su family even more motivated. To them, this was the most important step for the Su family to become the #1 family in Might City. While the youngsters were busy cultivating, Suya and a group of elders had a long meeting in the conference room. This was an opportunity for the Su family to surpass the Xiao family. At the same time, there was a certain amount of danger. Once the Xiao family and the Zhao family united by marriage, the Su family's pressure would suddenly increase, right now, in Su Zhan's courtyard. Different from everyone who was busy and nervous, General Su had a good nap during the day. Right now, he was hugging his wife and looking at the moon by the window. Su family only saw the small Might City, but they knew that this was just a beginner's village for the female lead and male lead. By the time the female lead's rank increased, Might City would welcome a beast tide. Long Qinzhan died in battle while fighting against the magical beasts. Before he died, he activated his Castellan seal and summoned the emergency rescue order issued by the Orinda country's royal family to every Castellan. Once the token was summoned, the Royal Family Summoners Association members closest to Might City would rush over here as fast as they could to rescue them. During this rescue mission, Su Wu, Xiao Yan, Long Li, and Su Zhan were chosen by the Orinda Royal Summoners Academy's teachers. Therefore, after the beast tide, the 4 left Might City to start their own careers in the academy. This was the female lead's true path to power up. There were all sorts of geniuses gathered in Orinda country's imperial capital. Plus, there were many advanced magical beasts. As long as you had money, you could buy a magical beast you liked. Of course, whether or not you could tame it depended on your abilities. As for Su Wu, she had the ancient spell that Silvermoon White Tiger taught her. She could use her spell to subdue all magical beasts and divine weapons. Then, she could use it to summon magical beasts and weapons. With such a heaven-defying cheat, it was hard to keep a low profile after the incident with Sun Randu. Su Wan no longer wanted to give the male and female directors a chance to rise. all dangers must be nipped in the bud. The initiative should always be in the palm of one's hand. How do you plan on dealing with Su Wu? Su Rui had never cared about Xiao Yan because the main character of this world was Su Wu. Don't make it sound so bad. That's your little sister. Little sisters are creatures that need love. Su Wan looked up from Su Rui's embrace. She looked at his thin and handsome side profile, her tone carrying a bit of laziness. I think we need to love and take care of her. Emma, Mate City is great. It's good to stay here for a lifetime. Don't you think so? You want to raise her to become a cripple? Su Rui's gaze flickered hearing Su Wan's words. She was a female assassin in her past life, cold-blooded and heartless. Plus, she already has abilities that others don't. She's ambitious and capable. There's no way she would stay in a small place like Might City forever. Right now, her biggest cheat is the white tiger. Let's start with the little white tiger. General Su was the most experienced in dealing with divine beasts. Husband, I'll leave this great mission to you moi. Su Rui was speechless. The next day, the sun shone brightly. Su Wu woke up and touched the side of her bed out of habit. Emman, it's empty. She suddenly sat up, a cold glint flickering in her eyes. Where's Little White? Little White was gluttonous and lecherous. Usually, he would think of ways to get into Su Wu's embrace. Of course, he was the best at night ambushes. In the beginning, Su Wu wasn't used to having someone by her side. But Little White was small and his body was furry and warm. After a while, she got used to having a living creature in her bed. But Little White wasn't here today. Little White? Little White. Su Wu jumped off the bed and called out loudly. A crisp voice immediately rang from outside the door. Miss, Master took Little White away. Ah. Elder brother. Su Wu froze. Ever since Su Zhan came back, the siblings hadn't officially talked to each other. Su Wu was also afraid that Su Zhan would find out that she was an imposter. Naturally, she was happy and relaxed. Since Su Zhan didn't look for her, she didn't take the initiative to see her nominal elder brother either. On the other hand, the servants in the courtyard changed their attitude towards Su Wu after seeing that Su Zhan came back. But speaking of which, why did her elder brother take Little White away? Su Wu thought about it but still couldn't let it go. Therefore, she changed her clothes and hurried to Su Zhan's courtyard. Before she entered, she saw smoke curling up from the kitchen chimney. Su Liang actually started a fire in the courtyard early in the morning and was barbecuing meat. Wait, barbecuing meat? Su Wu looked at the suspicious object that was emitting oil. Her expression couldn't help but turn cold. Su Liang, what are you barbecuing? Magical beast meat. Master wants to eat it. Miss, do you want to eat it? Su Liang didn't even lift his head when he heard Su Wu's question. Barbecuing meat required a lot of attention. He had barbecued a lot of magical beast meat in the past 3 years. The higher the level of the magical beast, the more chewy and delicious the meat was. The spiritual influence in the meat was also great magical beast. Is it Little White? Did elder brother tell you to barbecue Little White? Hearing Su Liang's words, Su Wu immediately rushed over and grabbed Su Liang's collar tightly. Murderous intent filled her almond-shaped eyes. Su Liang was speechless. Who the hell was Little White? Could it be the dog that Master brought back this morning? Why are you guys making a ruckus so early in the morning? At this time, Su Zhan's bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. Su Rui, dressed in black, carried Little White and stood at the door with a cold expression. Master, Wu, Master save me. Seeing Su Rui's figure, Su Liang couldn't help but cry. Eldest Miss suddenly became so scary. Master, hurry and save me. Seeing Little White lying docilely in Su Rue's arms, Suwu couldn't help but sigh in relief. Elder brother, Little White is here. I'm here to look for him. HM. Hearing Su Wu's words, Su Rue gently lifted his eyelids. Su Wu, I heard from Su Wan that you can summon an iron sword now. You're a beginner summoner now. Elder brother will train you well in the future. This low-level magical beast isn't suitable for you. Elder brother has already found a better one for you. When the time comes, I'll use a spiritual contract to help you summon it. In the future, no one in the Su family will dare to look down on you. Su Wu was speechless. Thank you so much, elder brother. I like Little White a lot. I don't want other magical beasts. I just want him. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wu's gaze flickered and she immediately pretended to be reluctant. The assassin's acting skills were decent and he didn't have any flaws for now. Seeing Su Wu's reluctant expression, Su Rue immediately got angry. Girl, why don't you understand elder brother's painstaking efforts? Are you willing to be bullied by others? How can my sister be so useless? You're actually reluctant to part with such a low-level magical beast. You're too soft-hearted. What use do you have for such a useless magical beast? I'm going to kill it right now. Saying this, Su Rue started gathering spiritual power in his palm. Seeing that he was about to summon the purple Ming sword, Su Wu immediately became nervous. She knew that she wasn't Su Zhan's opponent and she didn't dare to reveal her trump card in front of him. Therefore, she could only pretend to be weak right now. Elder brother, no. Elder brother, I know I was wrong. Su Wu interrupted Su Rue's actions. Just listen to elder brother's arrangements. Elder brother, please don't hurt Little White. Although it's useless, I like it a lot. Elder brother, you're the best. Why don't you keep it as my pet? I can't return it to you right now. When you become an intermediate summoner, come and talk to me again. Saying this, Su Rue turned around coldly and carried Little White back to his room. Seeing that her elder brother was so determined, Su Wu hesitated for a moment. She thought about how she was a grade 8 summoner now. Although she still needed some time to become a grade 5 summoner, it wasn't too hard. Plus, with Su Zhan providing her with resources, wouldn't it be easier for her to become a grade 5 summoner? After thinking about it, Su Wu still listened to Su Rue's words and left his courtyard. After Su Wu left, Su Rue and Su Wan placed Little White on the table. General Su furrowed his brows in disdain. Keeping it around is a disaster. Wife, why don't we just roast it and eat it? Su Liang is really good at roasting meat. Before Su Wan could reply, Little White widened his eyes and said, You guys can't kill me. Do you know who I am? Who are you? Su Wan bent down and touched Little White's head with her finger. Could it be that you're a divine beast that has been sealed and your brain is filled with lost ancient chants? Little White was speechless. How did you know? Little White's gaze turned vigilant. Just who are you? How do you know this divine beast's identity? Ah. Su Wan couldn't help but pat Little White's head. Do you really think you're a divine beast? You've heard too many stories about traveling poets, right? All right. Seeing that you look pretty cute, you can stay here and guard the door for us. You're making the best use of your abilities. Little White was speechless. I'm a divine beast. You want me to guard the door like a dog? I won't. I'm not a dog. A certain divine beast felt like his pride was hurt. Even his tone became awkward. Yes, you're not a dog. You're just a low-level profound beast that looks like a dog. Su Wan couldn't help but attack him again. Sigh. You're a weirdo too. You can even talk. There aren't many profound beasts that can talk these days. I don't know what breed you are either. How about we dissect you and see? Hey, don't mess around. I'll go guard the door, okay? A certain divine beast was speechless. What did they mean by a tiger being bullied by a dog? Chapter 246. As a silver moon white tiger, Little White had always thought of himself as a superior existence. He was born tens of thousands of years ago and was already a rank 10 divine beast when he was born. Do you know what rank 10 means? The king of magical beasts in the Sunset Mountains was just a rank 9 magical beast that could transform into a human. Therefore, you know how powerful a rank 10 divine beast is now, right? However, it was useless. Little White could only be a magical beast guarding the door of the Sioux family. What do you mean he was born at the wrong time? It turned out that it was born during the Great War of Gods and Devils 10,000 years ago. At that time, although the divine race successfully sealed the devil race in the abyss of hell, the divine race also suffered huge losses. At that time, all the mythological beasts were sealed by the Devil King, and more than half of the gods fell. With the retreat of the divine race, the other races on the continent prospered. Now, half of the continent belonged to the human race. This was the new era that humans had created. This continent was dominated by summoners. Summoners. Weren't they just using their spiritual power to wake up the sleeping divine weapons and magical beasts? Little White scoffed at this. This divine beast knew a lot of ancient secret techniques. I can scare you guys to death with just one. That's right. Even in this state, Little White still believed that he was superior. He wouldn't bend over just for a few buckets of rice. Little White, time to eat. At this time, Su Pei happened to walk into the courtyard from the kitchen with a box of food. When she saw Xiao Bai walking like a cat at the entrance, she couldn't help but smile and squat down. Xiao Bai, come here. I've ordered your favorite wild boar leg today. It's very delicious. Little White, I already said that I wouldn't bend over just for a few buckets of rice. But if there was meat to eat, then I'll consider it. A divine beast must be flexible. Why does this sound so familiar? When Su Wan and Su Rui came back, they saw Su Pei eating with Little White in her arms. Su Wan couldn't help but shake her head seeing him wolfing down the food. Sigh. As expected of a divine beast that had been sealed for tens of thousands of years. Look at his posture. You can tell that he hasn't eaten for a long time, Master. Third Miss, you're back. As for Su Wan and Su Rui going in and out together, eating and sleeping together, the Su family was already used to it. Plus, Suya had spread the news a long time ago, pushing the cancellation of the engagement onto Xiao Yan. Regarding this, the male lead calmly accepted it. It was just that the relationship between the Su family and the Xiao family had recently become like fire and water. Su family's young ladies and men were heartbroken by Su Wan and Su Zhan's strong union. Seeing Su Wan and Su Rui's figures, Little White subconsciously hid behind Su Pei. These two gave him a dangerous feeling. Seeing Xiao Bai's actions, Su Wan's gaze flickered. She turned her body and smiled as she tugged on Su Rui's robe. "Ah Zhan, didn't you say that you're going to teach me the mnemonic chant you just obtained? Hurry up, I can't wait any longer." Sure. It was rare for Su Rui to see his wife acting coquettishly. He immediately pulled Su Wan into the house with a smile. Su Liang, who was behind them, had to stop halfway and exchange a knowing look with Su Pei. Damn it, was he going to start torturing the single dogs again? Can you two please restrain yourselves? The sky had just darkened. Every night, they took turns doing something that was not suitable for children. Could they really break through just by doing it? Su Liang was ridiculing Su Zhan. An hour later, a large spiritual cloud gathered in the sky above Su Zhan's residence. The surging spiritual influence lit up the night sky and stole the moon's radiance. The entire Su family was in an uproar again. Heavenly, heavenly. Master was going to advance again. Su Liang was speechless. Su Liang wasn't the only one shocked. A certain ancient divine beast was also shocked. Su Zhan advanced again. This didn't make sense. No, the spiritual cloud didn't look like he was advancing from grade 3 to grade 2. It should be Su Wan advancing from grade 6 to grade 5. That's right. Su Wan was at the peak of grade 6. It was natural for her to advance to grade 5 now. Right now, Su Ye brought a group of people to surround Su Zhan's courtyard. They also noticed that Su Wan was the one advancing this time, not Su Zhan. In short, no matter who it was, as long as they were part of the Su family, it was a great thing. The spirit clouds in the sky gathered to a certain extent and were about to disperse. Right at this moment, winds suddenly blew in all directions, and countless spirit chi surged, forming a powerful spirit cloud storm in the sky above the Su family. This is... Oh my God! The entire Su family was boiling with excitement. Such a powerful spiritual cloud storm almost covered the entire Might City. This was the sign of a grade 3 advancing to grade 2. How long had it been since Su Zhan advanced to grade 3? 10 days. 8 days. He actually advanced to grade 2 at such a fast speed. How could people live like this? Not only the Su family, but the entire Might City couldn't sleep because of this. The future belongs to you youngsters. Long Qianzhan stood in the courtyard in the Castellan's residence and stared at the Su family, sighing slightly. The Su family had Su Zhan. No one could stop them. The number 1 family position in Might City was probably going to change hands. Su Zhan, in the Xiao family not far from the Su family, Xiao Yan stood quietly on the rooftop, watching the spiritual clouds gathering endlessly in the night sky. His gaze gradually turned dark and gloomy. Su Zhan, you're an opponent worthy of me going all out. Xiao Yan looked down at the token in his hand. His sister, Xiaoya, had sent someone from the imperial capital to give him this token. This was the Royal Family Summoners Academy's token. Originally, Xiao Yan didn't plan on using his sister's connection to enter the academy. But it seemed like he had to leave Might City if he wanted to surpass Su Zhan in the shortest time possible. Su Zhan, you and I will fight one day. Even if it wasn't for themselves, they had to do it for each other's family's honor. Fate was silently being changed, and everyone was no exception. Su family. This time, Su Rui and Su Wan's advancement duet could be considered to have gained face for Su family. But this time, the two of them weren't lucky enough to summon a peerless treasured sword like Purple Ming. Of course, they shouldn't be too greedy. After the advancement ended, the two didn't even show their faces. They continued to roll in the bed in the room. Everyone in the Su family could only go home to wash up and sleep. Therefore, there was a new rumor in Might City the next day. Do you know about Su Zhan? Do you know that Su Zhan advanced? Do you know why Su Zhan advanced so quickly? According to an insider, he obtained a summoner's inheritance in the Sunset Mountains. This inheritance was good stuff. Apparently, he could level up as long as he had sex with a woman. What? You don't believe me? Let me tell you. My uncle's wife's aunt's son's second aunt's cousin's younger cousin works in the Su family. Apparently, Su Zhan doesn't do anything but have sex with his woman all day. There were all sorts of strange things in this world. Yet, there were still people who believed such a ridiculous rumor. More and more people believed this was the truth. Little White, this is simply insulting this divine beast's intelligence. But there's definitely something fishy going on between the two. I must observe them carefully and find out their secret. As the rumors in Might City became more and more outrageous, the number of people who came to the Su family to visit Su Rui and learn martial arts from him could practically circle the city 30 times. Seeing the group of hungry men and a large group of women who couldn't satisfy their desires, Su Wan was also speechless. Thankfully, Su Rui always had a cold and aloof demeanor when he was calm. Normal people couldn't resist his cold aura and they all obediently left the Su family. Today, he chased away another group of people who wanted to become his disciple. By the time Su Rui returned to his room, he felt depressed. We can't continue like this. Su Rui sat on the chair, his expression dark. Then what should we do? Su Wan also looked at him anxiously. The inheritance you're cultivating right now is too domineering. Your advancement speed is too fast. Sooner or later, the royal family of Oran and even other countries on the mainland will covet it. By then, it might bring disaster to the Su family. Unfortunately, there are only cultivation methods that can increase people's spiritual power. There are no cultivation methods that can decrease it. Decrease my spiritual power. Su Rui's gaze brightened hearing Su Wan's words. It'd be great if I could contract with an advanced magical beast. I heard that advanced magical beasts can share spiritual power with their masters. That way, I can pass the excess spiritual power in my body to it. Unfortunately, there's no advanced magical beast in the entire Might City that can bear the burden of my spiritual power. Who said that there are no advanced magical beasts in Might City? At this time, a leisurely voice suddenly sounded outside the door. Xiao Bai walked in elegantly with his cat-like steps. This demonic beast, no, this divine beast is a level 10 beast. Do you know rank 10? Chapter 247. You're saying you're a rank 10 divine beast. Seeing Xiao Bai arrogantly reveal his identity, Su Wan couldn't help but narrow her eyes. She took a few steps forward and bent down, holding him in her hand with one hand. It said that mythological beasts can transform into human form from birth. Come. Change your form for me to see. Little White was speechless. If this divine beast could transform, would you still bully me like this? I'm just sealed so I can't use my spiritual power for now. Without spiritual power, I naturally can't transform. Little White said this while struggling in Su Wan's hands. So you're a divine beast that's been sealed. Even if what you said is true, what's the use? Su Wan swung her hands and tossed Little White to the ground. Hey, be polite. You guys are the ones asking this divine beast for help. I know all of your secrets. Saying this, Little White shook off the dust on his body and looked at Su Zhan arrogantly. How about we make a deal? I'll make a contract with you. You can transfer your excess spiritual power to me. Give it to you. Su Rui sneered. So what if you're really a divine beast? Once I give my spiritual power to you, what if you turn against me after removing the seal? I've read ancient records that divine beasts can only recognize a master once. Didn't you already recognize Su Wu as your master? You're still trying to trick me. By the end, Su Rui's voice had already become as cold as ice and frost. The entire room even had ice-cold spiritual energy continuously gathering. Hey, calm down. I didn't recognize Su Wu as my master. Seeing that Su Rui might flip out at any time, Little White couldn't help but explain first. Right now, Su Wu was only a rank 8 summoner. There was no way Little White would recognize her as his master. However, because Su Wu had woken Little White up from his 10,000 years of sleep, he instinctively got close to her. According to the original plot, Little White didn't recognize anyone as his master even after removing the first seal. Until Su Wu was framed and chased by someone, Little White took the initiative to recognize her as his master in order to save her. After a divine beast recognized a master, it could share its spiritual power with its master. In the end, Su Wu had to use Little White's spiritual power to escape from the crowd. Hearing Little White's words, Su Rui's gaze flickered and a secret smile appeared on his lips. Since that's the case, I can consider your suggestion. Little White, just consider. Dear, I'm a divine beast. A divine beast. You won't get another chance like this. What are you hesitating for? Just attack when you need to. Little White was very anxious, but he didn't dare to show it in front of Su Wan and Su Wan. This divine beast's intelligence is really high. The two people in front of me are both geniuses. That Su Zhan is even a genius that only appears once in 1,000 years in Dongchuan, mainland. This divine beast isn't at a disadvantage to recognize him as my master one day. His name will definitely shake the world. At that time, this divine beast will also become the person that everyone in the world respects and worships. There were many but Bo R and Ri are. That's right, this divine beast is a Bo Lu with discerning eyes. Young Master Su, hurry and obediently come to this divine beast's bowl. While a certain mythological beast was fantasizing about the beautiful future, Su Wan and Su Rui secretly exchanged glances. Done. I've already said that General Su is the most experienced when it comes to dealing with divine beasts. A certain White Tiger King and Black Dragon King sent a congratulatory message. Silver Moon White Tiger, please accept my condolences. All right, I'll trust you this once. As if he had finally made up his mind, Su Rui stood up and raised his hand to draw a contract formation in the air. Then he bit his finger and dark red beads of blood rolled on his fingertips. That's right, forming a master-servant relationship with a mythological beast didn't require an ordinary magical beast contract. Instead, it required the blood essence of the master and the mythological beast. Under the condition that both parties were willing, the blood essence would be dripped into the contract formation and it would take effect immediately. Seeing that Little White had also dripped his blood on the formation, a red light flashed in the room. A silver moon-shaped mark flashed on Su Rui's forehead and then disappeared without a trace. Master recognition successful. Su Wan heaved a sigh of relief on the side. The first step of the plan was finally completed smoothly. It had to be said that this was all thanks to the Silver Moon White Tiger sleeping for 10,000 years. It was an inexperienced and simple-minded mythological beast. Moreover, after being sealed for so long, it must be extremely thirsty for power. When Su Rui displayed his endless potential and extraordinary aptitude in front of it, it was not surprising that it would make this choice. Su Wan and Su Rui's wishes came true, but a certain mythological beast was destined to die tragically. What happened to being the master that was worshipped by everyone on the continent? Although his master did become famous in the end, a certain mythological beast stayed in Might City with his master for his entire life. Apparently, the sky was blue, the grass was green, the flowers were red and even the magical beasts were beautiful. Master, I really want to go take a look. Su Rui, don't cook dinner for Little White today. He's full just from his mental food. Little White, Master, I was wrong. The outside world was very exciting, but it was also very helpless. In short, as a mythological beast that was a glutton, his entire life had been bitter. Of course, this was all in the future. Right now, Little White, who had just recognized his master, felt that his entire body was filled with power. It was great to have a master who was a grade 2 summoner. This spiritual power was so abundant. Endless spiritual power surged from Su Rui's body. Little White immediately absorbed the spiritual power with all his might, gathering it somewhere in his body. He planned on breaking the first seal in one go. Once the first layer of the seal was unlocked, it would be able to use and cultivate its own spiritual energy on its own. Moreover, every mythological beast's mind naturally stored the inherited cultivation method of its own clan. Once the first layer of the seal was unlocked, Little White would be able to cultivate the cultivation method of its Silver Moon White Tiger clan. Crack. With a cracking sound, Whitey's body flashed with white light, and its entire body grew bigger. Although it was still in the shape of a small white wolf dog, it seemed to be a little more powerful. The seal was broken. The first seal is broken. The seal is broken. Little White excitedly jumped up and down in Su Rui's room. Su Rui and Su Wan exchanged glances and smiled helplessly. Although a certain mythological beast was over 10,000 years old, he was still a child. Though it wasn't good to lie to a child, Su Wan didn't feel any pressure doing it. "Ah Jean, now that Little White recognizes you as his master, how are we going to explain this to Sister Su Wu?" Su Wan revealed a worried expression when he mentioned Su Wu. If she finds out that her favorite mythological beast has betrayed her, she'll be really sad. "It's fine." Su Rui smiled faintly. "Xiao Wu is still a grade 9 summoner right now. She still has a long way to go before becoming a grade 5 summoner. By then, she'll have grown up and will understand." Little White was speechless. Damn. He seemed to have taught Su Wu a really powerful ancient chant. Her cultivation speed wasn't slow right now.